And if you can edit right now, that would encourage you to go. We've only got one. They don't want us to move it around. Oh. So I'll have to lean forward. I'll make a quick ask here of the planning commission members. I have been asked by IT that we do our best to keep the microphones on the pads, because they do tend to pick up quite a bit from the tables otherwise, so we can either lean into them a little bit, slide them back and forth a little bit as we share. So that will be what we do. And then just for the benefit of the public, if you, when you do come to the front, if you would please do make sure that you do your best to speak into the microphone. It does pick up pretty well, I think. So that will help everybody that's here be able to hear what you have to say. So thank you for that.
Okay, I don't see a big rush to sign up to speak, so we're going to call this meeting to order. Good evening and welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission for November 13th meeting. It is great to see so many people here, and this is what this whole process is about. So we welcome you all. We are glad to have you all here, and we look forward to opportunity to hearing from those of you who wish to have your voices heard tonight. A few things that we need to go over before we begin this meeting. I already spoke to this, but there is a sign-up sheet. Again, you'll only be allowed to speak if you are on that sign-up sheet. We'll go in the order that the sign-ups were received in terms of people who wish to speak from the public. If you have decided that, if you signed up and thought you were going to speak and decided that you don't want to, you certainly are welcome to decline that. You don't have to do that. However, once we get the public portion started of this meeting, if you have not signed up, you will not be allowed to speak. So I want to be clear on that. You can certainly still come up here and do that before we get going. I did give you a few minutes, but if you want to take that opportunity now would be the time, and then it's not going to happen after that. Okay. In terms of the public speaking, you will be allowed to speak one time unless specifically addressed by a commission member to return to the podium. There will be a 3-minute time limit, which will be enforced. The reason for that should be fairly apparent, but we would be here tomorrow night at this time if we don't enforce something along those lines. So if you're thinking of speaking, please be succinct and deliver your remarks in a time frame that will fit in that 3 minutes, if you would, please. You cannot cede your time to another person. So if you say, hey, I'm going to give my 3 minutes to my buddy Joe over here, that's not how that's going to work. 3 minutes is the limit, not 6. I would ask that we are very respectful of one another during this whole meeting. We recognize that this has been a long, ongoing process. We recognize that there are a lot of emotions involved with this on both sides. I feel like it'll be very successful meeting if we can look at our neighbor and be respectful to them, which means not booing, not jeering, not clapping, any other thing you can think of when somebody is speaking at the podium. Your remarks are just as important as the person next to you. Let's be respectful to each other, and I think this will go very well. Eric already addressed this, Mr. Van Dyken already addressed this a little bit, but please use the microphone, speak clearly, address the board members if you would, not the audience, not the Tepetonka group, the board members are the ones that want to hear your comments. We are the ones that you need to speak to. We ask that you speak directly to us, if you would, please. I really would ask, again, I kind of already covered this, but no personal or disrespectful comments of character towards members of the audience, the Tepetonka Group, commission board members, or employees of Candida County will be tolerated. That's not what we're here for. We're not here to attack each other's character. We certainly have strong opinions on this, or we're looking forward to hearing those, but again, looking forward to doing that in a respectful manner, which I hope you all will abide by. All right. I think I covered everything there that I wanted to. All right, we're going to open the meeting by, first we have to address the minutes from last month's meeting. Did everyone here receive those minutes?
Yes.
Yep. Are there any questions, comments, amendments to those minutes as you have received them?
Yes,
Commissioner Watson.
I would like to have the word deleted. I believe it was solitary or sole vote by Bonnie Watson in regard to the matter before the board. That was the subject matter of those minutes. The word was redundant.
Okay. Can you have the minutes in front of you? Or I can look them up.
I know what it's referring to.
Okay. Do you wish to comment on that? Can you?
That would not affect the content.
Okay. I'm going to look it up here quick so that we have it.
Krista has them right here otherwise, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, that'd be great. Apparently I'm not. Okay, the minutes are as follows. Roll call vote was had with 5 yea and 1 nay. Watson with the lone nay vote, motion carried. Would you like to make a motion to remove that from the minutes?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to remove the word loan.
So it would read Watson with the nay vote.
Yes.
Okay. There's been a motion to remove the word loan from last month's minutes in the sentence Watson with the lone nay vote. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Been a motion and a second to remove the word loan. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. The loan agenda, I don't want to use that word apparently. The only item on the agenda tonight is from the Tepetonka Club LLC. The applicant proposes to construct a golf course along with facilities and amenities associated with operations thereof. Proposal is located in an A2 General Agriculture District and RM Shoreland Resource Management District at 1155 County Road 40 northeast of Lake Andrew Township. Would a representative of the applicant like to speak to us on this application?
Mr. Chair, if I may quickly, for the Planning Commission's benefit, the packet that you have in front of you that looks like this is the content of the presentation that the applicant will be going through. And since the screen is behind you in this room setup, you'll be asked to go ahead and just kind of page through and follow along.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. We're happy to be with you here tonight. We have a presentation here. I see the clock is not changed from 6:59. Is it active?
be started.
Just a moment here, thank you.
Hold that mic up a little bit.
Maybe you can start by introducing yourself, sir.
I am Mark Haugiord, and I'm chairman of the Tepetonka Club. I reside at 1155 County Road 40 Northeast in New London, Minnesota. Okay, here we go. Tepetonka, we're here tonight to talk about our conditional use permit. For an agenda, we start with the Tepetonka story, and there's a long story, certainly with that brand, and we're a couple years into it since we first attached our name to it. During tonight's presentation, we'll go over the preview of the CUP, general information, how we propose to run the operation, the environmental setting in which we are located, what our Tepetonka values are, and then certainly we're looking forward to questions. The Tepetonka story really goes back to a hotel on Green Lake in 1895 called the Tepetonka Hotel on the North Shore. The name was found over at the Kandiyohi County Historical Society. I had asked an intern to help us with our branding. I had no idea that the next day I'd receive an email with that picture on it. I went over to the Historical Society myself to learn more about this name, Tepetonka, because it was a striking name. And what I learned was this hotel evolved from what was originally a mansion into what had many as 100 beds, that people would travel from neighboring states to come and enjoy the clean water and the great fishing on Green Lake, that there was a Tepetonka Gardens, and that college students would work there in the summertime to earn money towards their schooling. And I thought that that aligned really well with us, except instead of coming to Green Lake for the fishing and for the clean water, come to the Tepetonka Club to have fun and play golf. We'll get to, so the good old technology here. So why we're here. So again, part of my background is having grown up in Minnesota, right here in New London Spicer. I grew up at Little Crow Golf Club, and it led me to where I went to college, and it led me into a career. I had the good fortune of working for Jack Nicklaus for many years. I was the managing director of the Jack Nicklaus International Golf Club. I had responsibility for 81 clubs that the Nicklaus organization had designed. In total, we had designed over 400 golf courses around the world. So I've gotten to see a lot of activity, and golf has always been an important part of my life. But I never stopped coming here to Kandiyohi County. A very close friend of mine, Ross Strelo, who grew up here in Wilmer, he and I have been friends since 1972, is when we first started playing golf, going fishing and hunting together, and we've done it every year since. My father was the starter of Little Crow Country Club. So as a young man, I got to watch a process go on where they went to the FHA, the Farmers Home Administration, for a loan to help pay for this asset, which now, of course, has grown into 27 holes, is a tremendous benefit to the community, part of many people's legacy. And we come here every year as a family for the Memorial Golf Tournament to celebrate all those wonderful things that have happened. So through my golf business, then when I was in college, I worked for a gentleman by the name of Mike Schultz down at Hazeltine, Nashville. He is in the PGA of America Hall of Fame. He was there 37 years. He managed 11 major championships. And Mike and I, he was a founding member at a golf course down in Sand Hills. It's called Sand Hills in Mullen, Nebraska. It started in 1995. And the owner of this huge piece of land said, I want to build a golf course here. And people said, well, people aren't going to travel all the way out here to western Nebraska. How are they going to get there? It's literally up by North Platte. Very tough to get there, but gorgeous for sure. Sure enough, that golf course has been in the top 10 in the United States, #1 modern course in America for many, many years. Mike and I were hosting friends there at Sand Hills 5 years ago, And we said, how is it that all of these golf courses surround Minnesota? Yeah, and we've got these superb private clubs and wonderful public courses, but we have no private destination golf. So Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota all have them. And they are full of members. The demand can't fill the supply. There are waiting lists to become members of this club. So we set out to say, wonder if there's a chance we could find some property befitting of the type of club we'd like to have. No way could I have ever guessed that we would find what we did in what was a backyard for where I grew up. I actually found it driving down County Road 40 where we used to go pheasant hunting past there 4 or 5 years in the 70s. So here it came to this idea, how does Minnesota have no course like this? So we set out looking in kind of a triangle from Elk River north to Brainerd, western Minnesota. Ultimately, here we are. And what a great location it is. Consider the access to the Twin Cities, the fact that there's an airport here in Wilmer. It's just a couple-hour drive if you fly in commercial. We already have many members, and we also have a significant local presence here. We have over 30 members that are residents or have homes or businesses in Candioi County. Our contractors, our golf course contractor is Dunnick Golf. The first golf course they ever did was Little Crow. Now here we are 60 years later and they've got a nationwide business constructing golf courses. They are experts in their field. John Dunnick, the president, is a recent past president of the Golf Course Builders Association. And we contacted a great group here called Marcus Construction. What terrific people and partners that they've been. So they do all of the vertical construction. Everything we do, we try to do as much as we can on the local basis. And it's reflective in the teams that we have. So we've gone a long ways through the design process. We have a team of Australians. I had experts from multiple organizations to do the design, including my old team at Nicholas. And we chose this Australian group because of the fantastic work that they're doing, not just abroad, but a course they did in Fort Worth called Shady Oaks, and then most recently, Medina No. 3 in suburban Chicago. These are wonderful people at the top of the field. If you were to do a search on OCM Golf, they are recognized certainly in the top 10 of anyone. So we're thrilled to have them. And we can start to go down the list though, so I've got with us tonight, in fact, one gentleman, I'd like to just to have him say a couple of words because it's so relevant. I met Brock Olson 2 years ago. I was wearing a hat of a golf course called Whisper Rock. He was wearing a hat of a golf course called Whisper Rock, same at Little Crow. And I'm going, what in the world? And he said, I'm sure was thinking the same thing. He reached out to me this spring and says, hey, do you remember me? And I said, I sure do. He said, let's have coffee. Well, sure enough, we get together. And Brock has been in the golf business for 4 years. Now, the owner of that golf club, I consider him to be my #1 mentor. He's had a business there for over 20 years. He runs an incredible organization. And when I understood that Brock was in the business, there was no one else I'd rather have than somebody who lives right here that knows exactly what it is we're out there to do. Come on and share a word, if you would, Brock, about what your experience is and what you see in Tepetalk.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me here today. Like Mark mentioned, my name is Brock Olson. I'm a current resident of New London. My wife Alicia and I have lived there for the past about 7 years. Like Mark mentioned, I have been going down to Arizona the past 4 years. Luckily, my previous employer allowed me to go down there to experience some warm winter weather. So I was able to do that and gained invaluable experience working at what was mentioned called Whisper Rock Golf Club. So I really enjoyed working there, gained incredible knowledge, built through a network of people throughout the country and bringing back into Minnesota here itself. So when, like Mark mentioned, once we were able to connect 2 years ago initially, and now this early this summer, it was like a match made in heaven for me and my family, just because this is what my dream was as well. And I mean, I guess that's probably the best way to put it. So thank you for your time.
So every key element that I had when I was working for Jack Nicklaus was find the best in class around the table. And if you go down the list, and Kevin Gruber, who works over at Little Crow, we wanted to have as superintendent, we have had him consult with us. You'll see a short video from him. Sam Bauer is here tonight. He teaches at the university, taught his class tonight on the way down here, University of Minnesota on turf grass management. Sam is our agronomy expert. We have one other long-term friend of mine, Jim Nance is a design consultant of ours. We have a short little video clip from Jim that we're going to play tonight. Working closest with me on this process has been Denick Engineering, Jason Versteeg, and Peter Miller at Stantec leads a team of 20 people that we have had working on from Stantec. And I can safely say we have 2 years that we've worked on this process and many hundreds of thousands of dollars to get where we are. And we appreciate everything that we've done in working with the county and with our neighbors. We trust that you'll hear some excellent facts from our team and welcome the questions. Jason?
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Jason Versteeg. I am the engineering project manager for Tepe Tonka. I'm going to present some of the details relating to the construction and operation of the course. And to do that, I will loosely be following the CP report that you have, and we've submitted along with the application, which all of you should have included in your packet. So feel free to reference that document throughout my presentation. Otherwise, we will have many of the details projected on the screen throughout the presentation. So as shown on this map, Tepe Tonka Golf Course will be located approximately 6 miles west of New London, about a half a mile south of Lake Andrew. It's highlighted there on the screen on the south side of County Road 40. If we zoom in a bit, you'll see that the property is made up of 4 different parcels located in sections 13 and 14 of Lake Andrew Township, which in total include approximately 228 acres. It's bordered on the north by County Road 40 and on the west by 3rd Street North, which is a township road. Currently, the site is mostly vacant land that's been recently used primarily for private recreational uses, having been enrolled in the Conservation Reserve Program up through this past year. However, prior to the early 1990s, much of the site was actually tilled agricultural land, which according to historical photos extended in many spots right down to the shores of Shakopee Creek. There were 2 residents on site, one of which was in poor condition when we acquired the property and has since been removed. The other is the former DeShepper house and shed that's located along County Road 40. This house will be preserved and moved to another area on site, which we'll discuss shortly. And the surrounding land use consists primarily of ag fields and open grasslands with some residential units interspersed throughout. The site is located along Shakopee Creek between Lake Andrew, which is a half mile north, as I mentioned, and the Florida Slough, which is 3.5 miles to the southwest. According to the logs of area wells, as well as 3 wells that have been drilled on site, the site is situated above 3 distinct aquifers, which are separated by large confining layers. The shallowest of the aquifers is located at a depth of approximately 50 to 85 feet. The next, which most of the area domestic wells draw from, is in that 210 to 230 foot range. And then the aquifer that Tepe Tonka will draw water from to supplement irrigation needs extends from a depth of approximately 330 feet to 415 feet. The site is zoned A2, with a portion located within 300 feet of the creek zoned RM, which stands for Shoreland Resource Management District, both of which allow for outdoor commercial recreational uses, including golf courses, subject to the issuance of a conditional use permit, as well as being in harmony with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. So the improvements plan for the site are shown on this master plan. As shown on this plan, the majority of the golf course will be situated south and west of the creek. You can see the creek kind of running through at an angle, and doubling back around, exiting out the south end of the property. The majority of the course is south and west of that. There are 2 full holes and portions of 4 others on the east side of the creek. And also, there's a short course and driving range that will also lie on the east side of the creek. That's in this area right here. If we zoom into the northeast portion of the site, you'll see what is planned for the main hospitality area. The main entrance will be off County Road 40, around the center point of that northeastern 40-acre parcel. This will lead to the landing right there. That's the relocated house, which will act as a welcome center where members and guests will start their day. From here, patrons will park their cars in the parking lot and either proceed by cart or foot from there. There will be a clubhouse for lounging and meal services down in this area. And a start hut, which will be the center of golf activities. Other amenities such as lockers, golf simulators, offices, etc. will also be located in these buildings as well. One other building, which we are calling the Dead End, will be located near the 9th tee. The building will be used as a comfort station, including restroom and limited food and drink service. And then as a destination golf course, we plan to include some lodging accommodations on site in the form of cabins, which are shown here north of the clubhouse and start hut area. However, these will be considered under a separate conditional use process and so are not the subject of discussion tonight. The maintenance area is planned for the western portion of the site in the area of the previous Thorson farmstead. This area will include a new maintenance shed, employee parking, outdoor golf course supply storage, and a chemical building, and a grass nursery. The irrigation pond will be south of this. And it is situated in the low area on the western portion of the site in order that we can take advantage of the natural runoff that occurs and reuse that runoff for irrigating the course. Realizing that Shakopee Creek is an extremely important amenity to not only the course, but to the greater human and wildlife population, Tepe Tonka has pledged to prioritize stream bank restoration as part of the plan we are presenting in this application, which will fix badly eroded areas and greatly reduce the sediment load that's currently in place. Additionally, vegetation management will play a key role in ensuring the long-term health and viability of the creek. As a golf course, grassing is of paramount importance for playability of the course, but also serves the important function of soil stabilization. Because of this, Tepe Tonka has retained the services of 2 extremely qualified individuals that have vast experience in this area. First is Kevin Gruber, who is the current superintendent at Little Crow Country Club, and then Sam Bauer, who is a professional turf grass consultant and currently teaches turf science at the University of Minnesota. He's with us tonight here. Turf grasses have been chosen based on low input characteristics and disease resistance. Additionally, we plan to, we'll have native prairie vegetation. It'll be restored in areas adjacent to active play areas. The course vegetation will be maintained based on best management practices established in the Minnesota Golf Course Reference Handbook for Management Practices. So to talk more about this, we just have a short video. Mr. Kevin Gruber could not be here tonight, but he has prepared a short video that we'd just like to play at this time.
When it comes to applying nutrients on a golf course, we have the luxury that our crop, if you will, the turf never gets higher than 3 inches. What this allows us to do is use GPS guided sprayers to apply very, very small amounts of nutrients in certain frequencies. This has a number of positive effects, right? One, we're only applying what the turf grass needs. So it reduces runoff potential, it reduces leaching potential, which again has a net positive effect on Shakopee Creek by preventing nutrient loading. When it comes to mowing on a golf course, all of the fine turf, the greens, the tees, the approaches, the fairways, our machines that we use to mow the turf are equipped with buckets or baskets on the mower. So we collect all of our clippings and we haul them to our compost site, which does not leave dead decaying tissue there that could potentially wash into the creek and cause nutrient loading. These are all net positive effects for the Shakopee Creek corridor as it reflects everybody downstream.
Thank you. So if you have further questions relating to either the choice of turf grasses on this course or the maintenance of this vegetation, Mr. Bauer will be available for further reference later on in the meeting, of course. Relative to golf course operations, the golf course itself will be open to members and guests from May through October. When in operation, there will typically be a maximum of 90 players per day. To operate the course, approximately 40 total employees will be necessary, including grounds crew, food and beverage service, golf operations, and hospitality. We anticipate approximately 155 meals will be served per day through the clubhouse. We also anticipate a limited social and food beverage service during the off-season to members and guests as well. Relating to the schedule, assuming the relevant permits are issued, limited prep work, including selective clearing, controlled burns, and some earthwork if weather conditions continue to permit, could start yet this fall. Majority of the golf course and facility construction will take place throughout next year. Some construction may continue into the spring of 2025 while the course is growing in. We had hoped to be playing some golf later in 2025 with the course fully open in spring of 2026. Finally, I just want to point out that beyond the conditional use permit, there are multiple agencies that have had an impact on, and in many cases, regulatory jurisdiction and permitting authority over activities at the site. These permits ensure that there are no negative environmental effects from the various activities that are needed to construct and operate the course as presented. These permits include, among others, the MPCA, MPDS, SDS construction stormwater permit, the Minnesota DNR Public Waters work permit, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Section 404 permit, the Wetland Conservation Act, Wetland Impact permit, and the Minnesota DNR Water Appropriations permit. These are all in various stages of application at this point. So we've been working primarily on the engineering end and on the golf course preparation end for the construction. The one thing that we thought was important early on was that we get a partner involved that has vast expertise in environmental science. And so we've teamed up with Stantec to cover more of the environmental pieces of this course. And so I'd like to bring up at this time Peter Miller to talk about the environmental setting relative to this course.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. As Jason said, my name is Peter Miller. I'm with Stantec Consultants. We are the environmental consultants for this project. We were the chief author of the environmental assessment worksheet, and we're also doing the stream bank engineering design, stream bank restoration design, and the native prairie restoration design. As you may have read the environmental assessment worksheet, it takes a hard look at all environmental aspects, anything from traffic and noise and water and wetlands, odors, all sorts of aspects of the project. And it was determined by the county board, as you know, that there was a finding of no significant impact that couldn't be mitigated or otherwise permitted by state law. One of the things that was addressed in the EAW, and there was some discussion about it at the county board, was groundwater. and the irrigation well. And one of the things that we did is we have professional hydrogeologists that looked at the geology of this area to determine, is there a location where they could draw enough water from as needed to irrigate? And indeed, that was determined the case. We did modeling to determine if there would be an impact, whether it was the surface water of Shakopee Creek or there was discussion of a plume at the landfill. And then also neighboring wells. It was important to the commissioners that talked about it that night. And since that meeting, the well was drilled and two test wells drilled on the property, all under the supervision of the DNR through a preliminary well assessment permit. Tyne Well, Bob Tyne is here, who's the lead on drilling and producing that well. They did an aggressive test in the last couple of weeks. We received that data and we took that and remodeled. And we conclusively determined that the landfill plume, Shakopee Creek surface water, neighboring wells would have no significant impact at all from this. I believe that's contained in your packet if you want to read about it more. When I first stepped on this property, being a golfer, I was excited to see it. Beautiful landscape, some of you have been out there, but what you notice is it's not very diverse with its vegetation and habitat. It's been in CRP, so it's all brome grass for the most part, or buckthorn along the creeks, some volunteer cedars, that sort of thing. So what the development team came to us and said, we want to make this a significant environmental setting, which excited us because we're environmental consultants, and we do native prairie restorations. We do stream restorations. This is what we do. And so this project, while it'll be a golf course, over half of the property is going to be restored to native prairie. Shakopee Creek's going to be restored to reduce all the erosion that's happening. We're going to remove invasive species. It's going to be really a wonderful ecological lift for this corridor of Shakopee Creek. So we're going to be involved in that. Just wanted to give you a little bit of background on that. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, and again, commission members, and certainly the public here, there are three legs to our stool for this golf club. First is camaraderie. We want people to come together, have fun. It's all about community. How do we give back to community, including the golf community, including our local communities here, and certainly charity. Golf outgives all other professional sports combined. It's a $4 billion a year marketplace, and Tepetonka is going to make a significant impact. Our goal is to help Minnesota, which currently then raises about $80 million a year in nonprofit funds, to take that to 88. Tepetonka will play an important role with that. We'll generate, and by the way, back to the tourism, in 1967, there were 45 resorts within 15 minutes of Little Crow. Today, there are 5. Tepetonka is definitely tourism, all about tourism. It is a great place to work. The pay and the benefits are excellent. We have scholarships that are available. We'll generate well over $5 million in revenue once we have all of the lodging and a terrific tax base that we contribute without making a significant impact on things like schools and fire and safety. So we'd like to think of our plan as being highly impactful with very little takeaway that will be taken from it. On the contrary, we're here to contribute. It's also a really neat component that may be aware of. There is a lodging tax of 3%, of which 95% must be spent to remote tourism. That, if we do indeed build out what our plan, that'll be $40,000 to $50,000 a year for the area to promote tourism here. We agreed to give the Soil and Water District a permanent easement to spend $1.1 million in Shakopee Creek. That's evidence of our commitment toward conservation. The neighbor to our north also was to be part of that. I sure hope people take a good look and just see how bad it is on Dan Rupp's property. 60 yards from County Road 40, the erosion is as high as this ceiling. Something needs to be done there. Everyone I hear agrees that there were issues with County Road 40. We just want to be a big part of that. We'll certainly test the water. This has been talked about as it enters our property and again, as it leaves our property. We want to make sure that if there's an issue, we're aware of it, and we certainly want to communicate that. We're bound to communicate issues that arise, and we're fortunately going to be in position to be able to take care of any issues should they arise. We work closely with the county and the agencies because we wish to be a showcase. That's what our members are looking for. Of note in the community, we've certainly helped wherever asked for things like first responders, but it's also important to note that we contributed $10,000 to MinFish. That is an organization that helped the governor see their way to a $95 million budget to help restore fish hatcheries across Minnesota, and New London Hatchery is one of them. We're happy to be a part of good things. Our mission is absolutely to support youth advancement that for the motivated individuals that want to learn and grow, and one of the things we like to do is say, it's time to put your phone away. We want people to learn how to communicate with each other, and we like to see that phone will still be there at the end of the day. Don't worry. Go put in a good day's work with your team members and have fun while you do it. And you can, if you wish, be like a Brock Olson or somebody like me, or not, or take your own path. What we're sure of is you're going to enjoy the experience. Lastly, we had our first member gathering on site on August the 18th, and there's a gentleman here that has a little message for us all.
Hello, friends. Good morning. So nice to meet so many of you over the last 2 days. The things that I want to hitch my wagon to these days are two most important things. Is with people I want to be with, and is it fun? And this is what this is going to be. This is going to be a place where people are going to come and they're going to enjoy the other people that are here. And by the way, it's going to be spectacular. I've been lucky enough to spend a lot of my life around the greatest golf courses in the world. I've been a member at some of the finest golf courses in the world. I need golf like I need oxygen. And I know when I see things that are done the right way, I want to hang out here. I want to spend a lot of years here. I want to bring my son here. I want to bring my friends here. This is what this place is going to be. It's going to be great. Got 2 years. This is just early stages. There's still a lot to do. It's amazing to watch how they've already gotten to where they've gotten with it. With the routing, the plan, the vision. It's a great team. It's an incredible team, actually. And I can promise you one thing. He's going to make you proud. He's going to make Minnesota proud. And I'm going to sit back and I'm going to cheer him on every step of the way, just like we did for one another 46 years ago at the University of Houston. So, Augie, thank you, pal. Godspeed. Good luck to you, Katie, and everybody. Thank you, man. Thank you.
So that's the end of our prepared remarks. We'd certainly entertain any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tepetonka Group. Any questions from the board for any members of the Tepetonka Group? Commissioner Nissen.
I would just like to have you address specifics on the stream bank erosion repair, and also what invasive species are you going to remove? Just curious about that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the stream bank erosion goes through a design process, which we're doing. It uses a process called towwood, where we actually take trees with the roots and we stick them in the bottom of the bank to help stabilize it. We also use another process called J-hooks, where you put rocks out into the stream to create pools and riffles for fish and macroinvertebrates. That entire process gets permitted through the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources through a work in public waters permit. So that design has been completed and is under review right now by the DNR. As it relates to invasive species, it's mainly buckthorn. Very large stands of buckhorn exist throughout the bluff area and along the banks of Shakopee Creek. There's a lot of wetlands that occur adjacent to Shakopee Creek that also they're not invasive, but box elder and elm and some other trees that really suck up a lot of water and sunlight and don't allow native prairie grasses and forbs to thrive. So the intent would be to restore those to more of a native prairie, native wetland setting.
Any other questions for Mr. Miller while he's up here? Commissioner Amday.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned, or somebody mentioned about native prairie restoration. So I don't know this for sure, but it doesn't seem like the land that, or the grasses that are used on fairways are necessarily native to Minnesota. Are most of those natives you're talking about in the rough area, the adjacent area to the fairways?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Yes, so fairways obviously are a turf grass, a bent grass. What we're talking about is there's a lot of land in between fairways, and those are going to be restored to native prairie grasses and forbs, flowering. So it would be all those areas not in the fairway itself.
And if I may,
Absolutely.
follow up, what is currently growing in those areas?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, it's basically smooth brome is the dominant grass that's growing out there now with some volunteer cedar trees throughout the property.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Miller? I would like you, sir, to just, if you wouldn't mind, giving us a little bit of your background and history, or maybe yours and
Sure.
the company of Stanek, which gives you the knowledge to perform an operation like this.
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Chair. I have a degree from the University of Minnesota in soil science. I'm a professional soil scientist in Minnesota. Stantec, as a firm in Minnesota through acquisition, has been here over 30 years. It was formerly Wank. If you remember that company, we were acquired by Stantec 3 years ago. I've worked in Minnesota for over 20 years as a consultant, as a scientist. As Mark alluded to, I counted up, we have professional water resource engineers, professional wetland scientists, hydrogeologists, senior ecologists that have all worked on this with many, many years of experience.
Thank you. Any other questions for members from Tepetonka? Commissioner Imday.
This question would be probably not for you, Mr. Miller, but perhaps Mark. We have heard over the past, since this proposal first came forth, that that it might be a 501c3 and that they wouldn't be paying property taxes on the property. And can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, patently false. We pay our taxes and they will be significant. We ask for no relief. We look for no subsidy whatsoever.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members?
Yes, I have a
Commissioner
question. In the packet that's been submitted, it indicates that you see 3 uses to be part of this development. The first use being that it's going to be outdoor recreation, obviously the golf course. You also talk about a hospitality or event center, and I presume that's going to be the clubhouse. And the third use is the conservation subdivisions, which is related and we're not dealing with, which is the cabins. But what specifically are you looking at for, in addition to the outdoor recreation activities? Because in looking up destination golf courses, you can go to any internet browser and find different items listed. Sometimes a pool is listed, sometimes tennis courts, sometimes wellness spas, sometimes a video room, game room, and other amenities. And as your application is broad and states that word, I'm wondering if you are able to define that a bit further for us.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. There is a broad spectrum of destination golf clubs, most of which in our category are exclusively golf. There literally is nothing else there. For example, those ones that I named, Sand Hills, and certainly clubhouse and food and beverage, but no pools, no tennis, no spa, no types of amenities. That's kind of the general, was pure golf is what they like to call it. And that is very popular. But we're also saying we wanted to align ours more with the community itself here. So our plan is actually to develop off-site some lodging over on Green Lake for families and for people to be able to enjoy. Maybe after golf, they want to go on a boat ride. Certainly, if you look at another thing important to people that do the travels, they like to see the town. They like to go to the bar, go have dinner, go interact with people there. The people that have come here to Wilmer and to Spicer and to New London have gone to the restaurants, everything from Jake's Pizza to Westwood to Little Crow Golf Resort. So we have not created any other what you'd call activity dedicated by any stretch yet. We do have members that are interested in perhaps doing some winter sports, particularly from the cabins, maybe, and certainly as they become more and more aware of all the activities that are around here, we'll have a concierge that helps them out with that. But otherwise, we're not, we wouldn't have anything, there's nothing planned on that site for any of the types that were mentioned here.
Mr. Chair, if I may follow up. So in addition to this focusing on golf, are you looking at any type of events that would promote the golf course within the area or within the state in particular? Fundraising events, charitable tournaments, that type of thing?
And Mr. Chair and Commissioners, certainly it's a member-owned club, and we really like to follow the wishes of our members, and absolutely philanthropy is a big part of that. But we like to do it not in big events. Our proven model is one, keep your donor base down to a smaller number of those that are either your strongest donors or may become strongest donors, so that you don't, we like to say, why would you punish your donors by going to an event that lasts 6 hours and everybody's there to have certainly a great time? We take a quite a bit different approach. So it isn't about big, it's always around smaller. Is it possible we'll do an event in the future only with, again, under the guidelines of what we can do? We're not going to have a bunch of cars coming on out there. We're just not, that's not who we are. The Hazeltine Nationals and the Twin City golf courses with all the infrastructure, that's what they're for. We are all about keeping things very intimate.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from board members? I have a question for Mr. Vandersteeg. Versteeg. So in one of the slides, you mentioned low input characteristics. Could you further explain what that term means, low input characteristics?
Yeah.
In reference to grasses, I believe.
Right, and I could just speak in real general terms, but I probably want to bring Mr. Bauer up to speak to that more. I was referring specifically to inputs of water and nutrients.
Yep.
And so that's what I was referring to specifically to that question, but Mr. Bauer, would you?
Yeah, that's accurate.
So,
Yeah, no, yeah, and I would like to know exactly what that means when you're speaking in terms of water and fertilizers, what low input characteristics mean.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thanks for the opportunity here. Name is Sam Bauer. Spent basically my career in turfgrass science. When we speak to low-input turf grasses, basically for golf in Minnesota, we kind of have 4 categories of grasses we can choose from, that being the ryegrasses, the bluegrasses, which are in the high-input category, requiring more water, more fertilizer, more mowing. Those are the big 3 primary cultural practices that we use for turf. The 2 categories that we've chosen from for Tepetonka are the bench grasses, which is agrostis, and then also the fescues, which are festuca. So in my time at the University of Minnesota and in consulting around the Great Lakes region, I guess, we've identified those subset of grasses as requiring less maintenance. Just so happens they also happen to be very good grasses for playing golf on as well. So for fairways, for example, for the approaches, for the greens and tees, we'll have predominantly creeping bent grass. As was asked earlier, what is the origin of these species and sort of that conversation. It depends on which reference, you read about, but a lot of the grasses that we're using here at Tepetonka, all of them actually would be considered native by certain turf botanists. They've been naturalized here for 300 years. So in comparison to like our invasive smooth brome that's been here for, maybe over 100 years, these would be considered naturalized. And I do know some botanists that do make the leap and consider them native to the state.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
One more question for you, Mr. Versteeg. Question would be, will you be prioritizing local employees? You mentioned having potentially up to 40 employees at the course. Again, would the priority to be hire local people?
Yeah, I believe that would be the priority, and I think, Mark, do you want to speak to that a little more detail?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the answer is absolutely yes. We have, for example, in food and beverage, we have an operator of the Twin Cities who is a consultant of ours. So they'll do things like develop the menu, but they'll do all of the hiring and training and everything all right here. So the superintendent locally, the food and beverage locally, we'll bring in a couple of experienced golf professionals, but of our 40 employees, more than 30 are already here. And by the way, we've had outstanding response, people inquiring around jobs, and we track all of them. We keep a database, so when we're ready to start hiring, couldn't be more excited. We think it's one of our key differentiators. A Newland and Spicer versus a Mullen, Nebraska, it's not a contest. This is a fabulous community for business.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for the Tepetonka group?
I have a question. I'm sorry,
Commissioner
Mark.
Watt,
The application packet indicates that, and you've stated that you intend to operate May to October for the golf course. But the cabins, again, we're not talking about those right now, but they would be available because you mentioned outdoor winter activities. So while the golf course itself would be closed, so no damage to it, you are talking about membership have available the cabins for them to use. Is that right?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, that'll all be part of the next, as it relates to cabins. I think to your point, though, we do expect to have food and beverage available for people, members who want to come out on a limited basis and their guests. We hope to, and this is a model in progress, but we really like the idea of being able to keep more people employed and keeping our facilities busy.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair, I have an additional question in regard to the irrigation pond. I don't know who would be, and the vegetation around it, so I don't know who would that.
Yeah, may be able to answer that.
All right. Just a basic question about the irrigation pond. I've been looking at the contour topography map. You've identified that it's to be in a lower area.
Yep.
Is it going to be built so that the opening is at ground level? Are we talking about it being a bit above ground and bermed, or half in, half out of the ground? Because you indicate that you're going to be relying upon a well simply for filling that pond. But how much water do you expect to get off of ground runoff? And I assume that based upon what I can tell about the contour map, that's going to be coming off of the golf course, off the fairways
Right.
into there. Is that correct? Can you cover that a little?
That is correct, yeah. And I'm not going to talk, I don't have specifics for you right offhand, but I can tell you that as far as your question relative to the contours, we have put a grading plan together for the irrigation pond, and it's not bermed around the side. It's actually built into the contour of the ground. There will be there'll be some berming along the west side to screen the pond to a certain extent from the township road. But as far as the pond itself, it'll be built into the natural contour of the ground. And it's about 13 to 14 feet deep is what we're expecting right now. It'll hold approximately 7 million gallons. And like you mentioned, there'll be a portion of that will be regenerated through runoff from the course. But that will have to be supplemented through the irrigation well that has already been drilled and tested, and the analysis of which I think you have in your packet there. So, yeah, it'll be a combination. You know, there'll be some, and it'll depend on, you know, weather patterns and you know how much rain we actually get in a given year and that type of thing. But in general, yes, it'll be a combination of runoff and replenishing through that irrigation well.
All right. May I follow up, Mr.
Commissioner
Chair?
Watson.
On page 19 of the packet, it indicates that you intend to put, as you've already indicated, berms and vegetation to screen, starting that beyond the road right-of-way
Right.
in the township for 3rd Street Northeast. What type of vegetation would that be? Are you looking at cedars in order to keep along with the theme of the course itself?
Yeah, it would be a combination of grasses and relocated cedars that would be relocated on top of that berm. And probably some other trees, shrubs as well. It'll look natural, won't look like just a, you know, it'll tie into the landscape that's there, so.
Do you have an idea of how tall the berm and the trees would be for that area?
I would say the berm would be somewhere in the area of 3 to 6 feet above the level of the road, and then vegetation on top of that
Thank you.
to provide additional screening, so.
Any other questions? Commissioner Imdet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question probably goes to Mr. Bauer. Farming most of my life, I operate from the context of corn a lot of times, and I understand it takes about 2,500 to 3,000 gallons of water to raise a bushel of corn, and an irrigator today would expect to have a crop failure if it's less than 175 bushels an acre crop. Can you tell me the water usage, how they compare, the water usage you will have on this golf course as it compares to a growing corn crop?
Jeez.
It might be a little unfair you have to calculate. I know that rainwater provides much of that water for corn, but it also will for the supplemental water is what I'm looking for. And
Yes, sir. Chair and commissioners, what was the volume to produce your bushel of corn? Excuse me.
2,500 to 3,000 gallons for a bushel of corn.
2,500 to 3,000 gallons for a bushel of corn. Okay. On the fly here, you know, as far as relating that to turf grass, what I'll say, the advantage that we have with turf, you know, first and foremost, it's a perennial system. So anything that falls on it is really going to keep the soil in place there. But regarded straight water use numbers, essentially, you know, we base those on evapotranspiration. So we use models for that, like on a golf course, in this case with Tepetonka, we'll have a weather station. So we'll know what the evapotranspiration is on a daily basis. And all evapotranspiration, it's a model that measures things like wind speed, humidity, temperature, solar radiation for that day. And then we can know the specific value of the actual water that we lost. And when you subtract out rainfall from that, then we irrigate the turf with that. To answer your question, as far as volumes go, I would say, you know, it rains, 35 inches in Minnesota. In addition to that, we would probably use 10 inches to 15 inches, you know, on a 100 acre type of property or something. 15 inches would translate to 40 million gallons of water for 100 acres. you know, they say turf requires an inch of water per week. What, you know, most homeowners, when they irrigate to that level, they don't account for the fact that it rains 4 inches in June, it rains 4 inches in July, it rains 4 inches in August, you know? Those are just the facts. So it really does rain 1 inch a week in Minnesota in the summer. The challenge that we have with turf irrigation is it might rain 2 inches on a Tuesday and nothing for 10 days. So we use irrigation on a golf course to supplement natural rainfall, but it's certainly not in our advantage to put more water on the golf course than is required by the turf, because quite frankly, that creates soft and slow playing surfaces. And with golf, we want the grass to be barely alive. And the first meeting that I had personally with our designers, the OCM Golf Group out of Australia, which Mr. Hoggiord mentioned, you know, they wanted to be sure that I was specifying grasses that the ball would bounce on them and that they would roll a ways. So quite frankly, I want something that would, you know, look a lot more like that door or like this podium here than I would want with like the Augusta National type of property here. So very judicious irrigation to answer your question, I guess. I wouldn't anticipate more than 10 inches required per year, which 10 inches on our property here would translate to just over 20 million gallons total.
Thank you. I can do the calculations on my own.
Yes, sir. You bet.
I am being asked by the IT to make sure that we use our microphones. This meeting is being recorded, so especially Mr. Emdick, if you can lean in a little bit and make sure we're capturing all that. So thank you very much.
Any other questions for Tepetonka Group?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the public comment portion of the meeting. There were, if you came in late, did notice a few people that came in late. I'm not trying to call you out, late arrivals. But we do have a sign up to speak. If you would like to do that, please come and do that. And we are going to take the speakers in the order that they signed up. And if I butcher your name I apologize on the front end. Is there anybody that came in late that would like to sign up? Yeah, you get to come up front and admit it. No?
Commissioner Emdick reminded me that sometimes in longer meetings, people have to get up and perhaps use a restroom. So we'll just make note that if you go through these doors here, there's a women's restroom if you take the first left here. And if you go further down to the other hallway, the far hallway, take a left, you're going to find a men's room. So that's just a bit of housekeeping. Thank you.
Okay, the first speaker the first individual on the list is Gary Noel. Did I pronounce that correct, sir?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Gary Noel. Live at 17510 3rd Street Northeast, New London, Section 14 of Lake Andrew Township. My wife and I have lived there since 1973, and we would be immediate neighbors to the golf course. Excellent presentation. The only thing you've glossed over very rapidly is the connection of the golf course and the landfill. The landfill, which I would mostly speak of here, is magnified by the golf course. I'm a former golfer. I have no problem with golf. I like golf. I don't play anymore. Kaneohe County, excuse me, has spent millions of dollars over the past many years to correct the leakage from the landfill. It is now getting complicated with the finding of these new, stronger chemicals, these PFAS and PFOS chemicals, which are forever permanent damage to the environment and people. It is, in my opinion, not a correctable problem. Brief history of the landfill. The original 23-acre landfill was developed by the city of Wilmer in 1969 in Lake Andrew Township. It was in a gravel pit used to build the new Highway 71 when it went straight north from Eagle Lake. The gravel, excuse me, the gravel pit was used for the landfill. There is no base under the original landfill except sand. Buried at its base, unfortunately, are an estimated 155-gallon barrels of defective industrial paint. And of course, on top of this, you've had 20 years of municipal solid waste to complicate it. Candioi County took over, excuse me, the landfill around 1970. It was a Superfund site until 1997, was never corrected. It was only capped with plastic liner. A real problem was the 2009 large underground fire. Many of you may remember it, which was put out, unfortunately, with this chemical foam, which was determined almost immediately to contain all of these PFAS chemicals. And there were thousands of gallons of that foam used to put out that underground fire. It's all still there. It's all leaking. There is a toxic plume of chemicals which come out of the landfill. It's well documented. It goes to the northwest. It's about up to from the landfill, it's about up to Shakopee Creek right now. And this contains the older chemicals of vinyl chloride, methane gas, all kinds of other things. It's now found to have the PFAS chemicals. I don't think any of you probably saw the July 2023 report from ECAD. You know what that is? It's the county firm that does the testing, because it was not included in the EAW. You should request a copy of it.
Mr. Knoll, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we are running up against the time limit.
Sure.
Can you summarize your connection, or your, how the golf course then would be, the impact of the landfill concerns that you have in connection with the golf course being constructed?
Sure. I don't have a video, but plain and simple, you know, the landfill leaks the chemicals, the golf course would inadvertently, unintended consequence, pump it out. And where it pumps is be on the land, it would wind up in Shakopee Creek, would wind up in private wells. I have copies of this, which I can leave with you if I'm running out of time. Let me just conclude by saying that this board and the county commissioners in the past 20 years have twice denied residential projects in this same area due to proximity to the landfill water issues. I would recommend that if you cannot do anything else, that you should refer this matter back to the county commissioners for a environmental impact statement. The leaking landfill is the problem, exacerbated by the pumping. If Gulf patrons start getting sick, they will blame the county in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knoll. Any questions for Mr. Knoll from the board members? I do have one question. You said that the plume is well documented.
Yes.
By whom?
By your county, by Environmental Services, Eric knows, by Gary Deere.
Thank you. We will add that to the information pack we already have. Thank you, sir. Next on the list is Jared Swart.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commission. My name is Jared Swart. I'm the Chair, Lake Andrew Township Board. We submitted a public comment list, public comments list of 33 proposed conditions for the project as the Commission received the packet.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Most of these suggested conditions are repetition of conditions drafted by the zoning department, but they and the new conditions are more detailed and specific to offer more protection to our township, its residents, and the environment, especially the water. Similar conditions to those proposed by the department. I'll just review a few. Condition number 1 regarding signage. Township would request that the developer requests township permission for any signs on our township road or within our road right of way.
I'm sorry to interrupt you again.
Sorry.
sir. We are going to go over these that you have emailed to us, correct? Yes,
Oh,
we are
okay.
going to go over these as part of our discussion, so if
Okay,
that helps you.
yep. Say like condition, condition number 13 in your packet requires or allows for county department inspection. The township would request the same privilege. It is just a request. And then upon the new conditions proposed, to highlight a few, numbers 3 and 4, especially number 19, asking the landowner developer to completely abide by the description of construction, grading, landscaping as required by their master plan or exhibit. All we're asking is, what the landowner developer is asking to do no more, no less. What restrictions on noise, asking for a storm shelter for protection of staff and obviously members. Number 15 relates to maintenance of the exclusivity of the proposed destination golf club, so no camping. As I said, you have this list. These conditions are not likely to stop the approval of the permit by this commission, but these conditions will assure that the landowner does what they are asked by the commission as they plan to do. As I said earlier, we're asking for the consideration of these conditions for the best interest of the township, its residents, and our environment. Thank you, Commission. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Swart. Any questions for Mr. Swart? Mr. Imdet?
Thank you. Thanks, Jared.
Yes.
The question about the noise, during construction, there's gonna be noise that'll be different than once the construction is over. Are you talking about during the construction period as well, or once the construction is completed?
Once construction is completed, say with events, if there was to be a band or that's the,
All right.
or
Thank you.
or maybe a rowdy crowd.
Sure.
You know.
Thank you for that clarification. If I may follow up with a second question.
Commissioner Imdet, yes.
On number 21, it says landowners shall reimburse the county and township for all administrative, legal, and planning. I know that the township has done a lot of work already to prepare yourself to respond. Are you going to be asking for remuneration for the work you have done or work in the future that may come up as a result of this potential conditional use permit?
It would be in future work.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Swart? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next on the list is Pat Johnson.
That's me, but I think I'll wait if it's okay. If later, maybe I won't need to speak.
That'd be fine. Jason Doty.
Hello, my name's Jason Doty. I live at 373 County Road 40 Northeast. If you look at your map, I'm the compass. I'm the guy that owns the two buildings that'll be next to, basically my front yard is going to be their maintenance facility by the design of the property. I will be deeply affected by this. They're going to swallow me up on three sides. I've had no issues at all with Tepetonka in 3 years. They've been great partners with me and friends. Mark, me and him speak weekly. And as a disabled veteran, I'm glad for it. He's taken time to know me and support my family and help me. And I'm glad to have them around me. I really am. They've always been friendly and always worked with me. We have some drainage issues that we're going to have to work with the maintenance facility, but we've spoken about these. But these are issues that I can't get resolved and answers to until you guys act. I have no issues with it. If they want to pay $100,000 to watch me go bawling across my field with my dog in tow while she digs holes and poops, let them pay it. I'll be the goldfish in the bowl. They've been great. They've cleaned up that old farm site over there. They're getting ready to get rid of a septic system we didn't even know was there, an open pit. They're going to get rid of it for me. They're going to take out some of my property to ensure that we get it done right. I ain't got no problem with them. 3 years they've been going across my end of my property down there. Never had a problem yet. I've met all the scientists. I've met all the state officials. I've met all the dignitaries. I see no issue with it. The water usage is mute. The land's been sold. Thorson's farm is gone. It's back into the game. It's either going to be a golf course or a farmer. Who knows? Maybe part of it'll come a gravel pit. Why not a golf course? It's a gorgeous place for it. They're going to fix the river. They're going to come onto my property where I own just a little portion of it, but it's enough. And they're going to restore it. I ain't paying anything for that. I don't see any issue with it. They will drain part of their field right across my whole property. And it drains down in my lower field. I see no issues with that. It's naturally drained that way for, I don't know, since God's in time. They're going to restore some of the natural habitat up there that's been previously drained off. I watch these guys every week with my drone. They know it. They've given me permission to fly my drone. They have me kind of watch the place for them. And I fly my drones out there every day I can because that's what I love to do. And they're taking care of the property. They're going to restore it. I've seen it from the top myself where they've got everything cut out. The pheasants aren't going to lose anything. The deer are going to have better habitat. And they'll have a safe place to go, I guess, when it comes hunting season. But, I mean, I see no issue. I've had no problems with them. I'll be the little fish in the bowl and let them build it.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Doty? Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Let's go,
I
woman.
did have one question. Mr.
Mr. Doty.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Imdash has a question.
How long have you lived on that location?
8 years.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
See you later. Next on the list, Taylor Marcus.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Taylor Marcus, and I represent Marcus Construction, a company that's been serving Kaneohe County for 67 years. I'd like to offer our organization's perspective on the proposed Tepetonka project. While many people have learned about this project through the media or word of mouth, I've had the privilege of working closely with Tepetonka for nearly 2 years, as Marcus Construction is the general contractor on the project. While I'm enthusiastic about the project's benefits for our community, I want to specifically address Tepetonka's local involvement and most importantly, speak about their character, which I've witnessed firsthand. From the onset, Tepetonka's vision for the project has been clear. They wanted strong engagement from local businesses. In line with this goal, they've partnered with Marcus for the vertical construction and Dunnet Golf for the golf course construction. We are fortunate in Kaneohe County to have skilled tradespeople in every field, and I'm confident that Tepetonka will continue to provide opportunities for our local tradesmen, and it will provide many of them a platform to showcase their skills and expertise. The project's impact extends far beyond the construction phase. Tepetonka has actively engaged with local community by joining the Wilmer Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce. They've created some special memories for the NLS football team, and they consistently demonstrate the commitment to advocating for our local businesses. This is a business that we want in our community. Finally, and most importantly, I want to emphasize the exceptional character of Tepetonka team that I've had the pleasure of working with firsthand. In the construction industry, we're fortunate to collaborate with a variety of businesses as they work on significant investments in their infrastructure and our communities. If you've ever built a project of your own, you understand how difficult, stressful, and challenging it can be. Let me tell you that the Tepetonka team stands out as truly exceptional. They conduct themselves with the utmost professionalism and go beyond what is expected. They treat our employees with respect, and I'm confident that every contractor, employee, vendor that steps foot on that property will be met with the same. I'm proud to be a part of the project, and I'm confident that it will be a significant asset to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marcus. Okay, next on the list, Lori Thorson.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. We only became aware of this golf course in the spring of '21 when some members were going to try to sell this property. It was owned by my husband and his two siblings. It was a farm property before that time. In March of 2022, there was a Forbes magazine article that indicated the following paragraph embedded into it. The farmland Haugyard came across had been in a preservation area for years. And while the family had no plans to sell, they embraced Haugyard's vision and the opportunity to create a lasting legacy. When that was written, that article, he knew we were in litigation to try to preserve our family farm. This family farm had been a legacy for over 100 years in the Thorson family. My family's exhausted. I'm the only one representing us tonight. What you choose to do is up to you, and what is best for this community is up to you. I understand that. But they talk about this brome grass, and I will tell you, that was CRP, naturally occurred. It was only touched when we were requested to cut it. It was cut in 2017. We asked special permission in 2021 if it could be cut and allowed a local farmer to take that grass as it was a drought year. The interesting thing is I'm being told that it's going to be replaced with natural prairie grasses and things of that nature. That year in 2021, it still grew all on its own in a drought year. I don't know that much about all that. I'm not a scientist, but it grew, and it grew just fine. Later in that year, it did talk about Mr. Haugyard had a letter to the editor, and he talked about eroding banks and sediment, and I will tell you, I've roamed that land for over 40 years. The banks, to me, on a personal level, didn't appear like they were shrinking and residing by that much, and I don't know how he came up with this information about how many tons floated down past that into, did they float into the Lake Florida sloughs? I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to know where that information came from and how that evolved. I don't know that that has been addressed. I could be wrong. There's also talk about, recreating this into look natural. In the 40 years I've been on there, it has looked natural. It's been in CRP land from, I believe they took it out of production in 1986 when our first child was born, so I know the year on that. There has been other talk regarding fixed income people, and there was a great concern at our last township meeting that if we proceeded with litigation to try to stop this, it would cause a lot of increased assessments because to pay for that lawsuit. Now, here's the deal on that too. What is this going to do to our property tax value? There are people on fixed income. If this raises the property tax value, how are some of my fellow township members who have fixed incomes going to be able to pay their taxes? I don't want to be run out of my township. I don't want my neighbors ran out of my township. Is there a plan in place for those whose wells may be affected by this? Will there be a set-aside fundage for those people to access if their wells are affected? They talk about water, what it's like right now, what it has been like. Were these areas tested 30 years ago to tell if this erosion has caused effect downstream? I do not know that. I'm not sure if they can answer those questions. There is up to a 60-bed planned facilities and bathrooms and that type of thing. If there's 100 people on this course a day, are those 60 beds going to be used by those people? And how much disruption to the land is there going to be to provide all this lodging? How many dump trucks are going to be going over that land? We weren't even allowing some of our own family members towards the end to do much on that property because it was in CRP, which means you don't recreate on it. That land was safe. It wasn't being moved. How much more damage is going to be done by moving all of this heavy equipment to provide all of these structures?
So I'm going to interrupt that point right there. It's a little confusing. We keep talking about these cabins. The cabin is not part of this conditional use permit tonight. That's a whole separate thing.
Okay, I am sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize at all. I wanted clarification for everybody here, just to make sure.
Well, and as a township person, I would like then to make sure with the conditional use permit that that is very looked at and addressed up front. And will there be opportunities for public hearings and speaking about that as we move? There was supposed to be, Mr. Haggard indicated at one point in this that there would be a lot of public opportunity meetings, and until tonight, he has not allowed that. At a township meeting last summer, people tried to ask some questions, and he abruptly left and said he was not taking questions. So until tonight, there has not been allowed any public input. We would have liked to actually have had a say in some of this and given him some indicators of what the community wanted. That has not been allowed till tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Thorson?
Thank you. Thank you
ma'am.
for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. So I think we need to answer, or attempt to answer, or see if there's answers to a couple of her questions. Specifically, she was talking about tons of dirt coming downstream potentially. Do we have an answer to that question or to that comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I don't have the number right off the top of my head, but I know in the EAW we included that information. One of the first things that we did was we sent stream bank, stream erosion experts and ecologists, and we surveyed the entire reach of the stream, taking exact measurements of height and depth, and did that calculation. I know that information was provided in the EAW, but I don't have the number right off the top of my head.
Thank you. Mr. Van Dyken, can you address the question of increase in property tax values? That is a common question on many of our CUPs, and so it's obviously a concern for our citizens. Has that been something that's been assessed on this CUP?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have a chance to talk with our county assessor, Val Swore, about this question. One of the things that Val would note is that these sales for this property are specifically excluded as unique sales, so they do not affect the area property values as far as high value sales driving up area values, because they are unique and atypical. So the state rules for how you take sales and figure them into overall property values, take into the account that uniqueness, and they actually basically kick them out and don't allow them to be considered.
Thank you. And then one of the other things that she mentioned was, is there a plan if the wells would be affected in the future? We talked about that, or I'm sorry, we didn't. You mentioned that they were not impacted by the testing that you did, but if there was an impact in the future, how would that be addressed?
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as part of the water appropriation permit that the DNR issues, it's actually their charge that they cannot issue a permit unless they're confident wells will not be impacted, so they don't just take our analysis and word for it. And we don't believe there will be any impacts. All that said, the permit does have restitution. If something were to happen to a well somewhere, it would be incumbent on the owner of that well to make restitution commensurate with whatever the impact is.
When you say the owner of that well, you mean the owner of the well that's affecting the others?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Commissioner Imdat.
A related question, is that the same sort of contingency, the DNR permit regarding a well that might have been affected from the drawdown of the well on this property, is that the same thing that happens with farm irrigation wells?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I don't know that I can speak to farm irrigation wells. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, any other commissioners have questions from Ms. Thorson's comments? I haven't took most of those, hopefully. Okay. We can take time from anybody else. All right, next on the list, Gene East.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. My name is Gene East. I'm a Lake Andrew Township resident, and I'm going to start by retracting my good evening comment. I don't believe it is a good evening. I don't believe we should be here. I don't believe this is necessary. I don't think we should have made it to this point. We have a complex project before us, before you. We have a project that has quite a bit of potential risk for the environment, quite a bit of impact possible for many aspects of particularly Lake Andrew Township and the county. And I believe that due to the complexity of the job, the risks that are inherent in a project like that with the water impacts and the environment that we're faced with, and the large volume of public concern for what's going on out there, I don't find this, this process of a conditional use permit enough. I strongly believe that the EIS was the appropriate approach to this, that we could have, this evening, I believe we are trying to sort out a super complex project with super big impacts, positive or negative, in a process. You're learning at, I can tell we are all learning at a rate here that's tremendous. We have not had the opportunity as a community in many ways to have this sort of engagement yet. Our public engagement, this is largely it. You heard a moment ago from one of the other, Ms. Thorson, that the opportunity to interact in this regard has just not been there. And that's not good. That is really bad. An EIS, on the other hand, or some real public engagement is very, very important to this. I feel right now that many of our citizens feel very, very unheard. I can assume to a certain degree that our township board has also felt maybe even disrespected from some of the happenings within county, the county, under the county roof. I won't point to any individuals or the board necessarily, but it's there's some issues, there's some concerns. So my ask for this group is if you can at all return this to the county board for reconsideration, the full commissioners, board of commissioners, for an EIS, I think that's the best approach. If that is not possible, we need to make sure we dot every I and cross every T and make certain that we do everything we can to emulate a real environmental documentation process as well as public engagement. We've missed a lot of folks. I believe also with the complexity of the project and the speed of the project, I think I heard tonight for the first time that there will be a need for another conditional use permit for the cabins. Did I miss something, or is that oops?
No, that's correct.
That's oops, we're gonna add, excuse me, is that new information? I guess we're in a complex, fast-developing project that requires, in my opinion, a much more comprehensive analysis and study and public engagement. And that's one example. And I will say, I did hear one of the presenters from the Tepetonka who've done a nice job of preparing their information and sharing that the EAW was a hard look. I will respectfully disagree. It's a good look, but a project of this complexity, this risk, this need for public engagement really has earned the hard look of an EIS. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. East? What do you think that the environmental impact study would provide that an EAW does not?
I do believe the water, particularly water use, the potential for the three or more aquifers, the true assessment of the risk in that in water use in terms of if those aquifers should in any way, shape, or form merge. We're in an area there where I know the complexity of the hydrology. It's a complex science. I won't begin to be the expert. And I've read what was presented, and in most cases, I think that's probably sufficient. But we have several hundred other people that have not had that opportunity to see what you've seen. And you're making also a decision based upon a individual engineering judgment on the hydrology. That's a big ask of you folks as well, to lean on that. So hydrology primarily, water, I think is the main thing, but public engagement in general. You've heard many questions about taxes, about traffic impacts, about noise, and I think those are reasonably well addressed in the EAW, but I don't believe particularly the water usage and water threat to runout, threat to stormwater merging with the plume from the town or the landfill. I realize the great depth and the difference in depth, but I also know Enbridge Line 3 now has 4 new damages to the aquifers that it did. Oops. That's a big oops when it's in your backyard. And the plume of the landfill is basically PFAS and PFOS. That's serious business when my well is about 1,700 feet from Shakopee Creek. I don't appreciate that much. I think it needs considerably more study.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next on the list is John Hartley.
I live in Lake Florida. I built my home there 30 years ago. I was a general contractor. I also built a home on Green Lake. I moved off of Green Lake because of the water sewer system coming in, and I could see what was coming at me, $25,000. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. So I took my family, I built a home, I pounded the nails in it myself. I raised 3 kids there. My wife is a minister in this community. I do tons of things with the youth program. Everybody in NLS that has anything to do with athletics knows who I am and what I've done for kids. I'm a golfer. I play U.S. courses. My son is a very accomplished golfer, wins tournaments out in Washington. I played Chambers Bay. I play the Plantation in Maui. I'm not against golf. My daughter was on the last high school team that went to the state tournament for girls. I'm not against golf, okay? I love golf. I play golf. I've been a member of Little Crow for 30 years. I have to say this because I may have offended some people in this township, and I apologize to you if I have. I pushed their button because questions weren't being answered. The residents of the township of Lake Andrew are not in support of this project. You people should have been at the last meeting that we had 140, 150 people in there. I'm surprised there weren't.
Address the board, please.
Oh, I'm surprised that there weren't punches thrown at that meeting. The support is not there for this project. You know, Lake Florida is at a tipping point. I have heard the reports concerning our water, and some lakes are at the point where certain agencies have given up on them. They're considered black lakes, and we are close. We are very close on that tipping point. This year was the dirtiest that our lake has ever been. Now, they're saying maybe they could clean it up. I don't think I need a golf course to address that issue. I think there's other agencies that could address Shakopee Creek. I've hunted on that property that they're talking about, right up next to it. My son has been there with me and with other people. No, it's never going to be there again. Another thing, I'm never going to get to play this course, okay? I don't have $100,000. I'll never play it. I don't want the course. I don't need the course. I don't see that much value in the course. You know, I understand why the ag permit's there. Go look at the taxes as it relates to paying your real estate taxes under ag. Ask Mr. Steve Combs, who lives right up the road from this project, and how they turned his property around and how Steve had to go back to reapply for an ag permit. It's a lot less. It's 50%. I pay close to $8,000 right now on my home. I started out at like $1,500. I'm at $8,000 now, and it's going to go up more next year. It's going to go up. And that lady was right about the comment. Right down our street, we have 3 homes. People don't live there. They're VRBOs, people from the cities with a lot of money. They don't spend money in this community. They don't spend it at O'Neill's. They don't spend it at Teal's. They don't spend it at your place, Roger? No, because they aren't here, okay? They're only here a couple months of the year. These people are going to be here a couple months of the year. And that's what we're going to have. I'm also concerned about this whole septic system. It sounds like an awful lot of septic waste, and I just can't comprehend this dense housing and how they're going to address this, but I understand the subsurface septic system. If mine failed 10, 11 years. We did some other things out at Lake Florida, and now we're all tied into the Green Lake Water Sewer System. The best thing that was ever done. It was the best thing for Lake Florida. I'm asking that you also deny this. These township people have not been involved in this process. They have not been informed in the changes. The goalpost keeps moving with these people. It's hard to hit a target when you keep moving the goalposts. And I wrote my master thesis on community involvement and grassroots involvement. And everything that has taken place so far is totally against the principles of everything that I put in that documentation. You know, and I guess maybe I didn't know what I was doing, or the people I was talking to didn't know what I was doing, but I worked with 15 different municipalities through the Anoka-Hennepin School District, and we had great relationships because we involved the people. These people have taken a beating on our township because the information has not been shared with them. I agree with Gary. Why not do a comprehensive environmental study? What is it going to hurt? Do any of you read this paper, Lakes Area Review? I know you do, Roger, right? Did you see the front page today about what Carolyn Hattlestead said about what happened with the landfill and the millions of dollars that it took place, and how her dad was a chairman? He was 50 years involved in township boards. They made a mistake. Mistakes can be made. Rochester, private golf course, Rochester, $1 million lawsuit, millions of dollars because someone made a mistake in applying the chemicals on their golf course. Lost all their trees, okay? Someone can make a mistake in this golf course. Do we need it? How much benefit is it to the community? You know, you people seem to think it's tremendous. I just don't see it on a spreadsheet. I just don't see it. And this is a great community we live in. And another thing, my last comment is, the relationships with these people and this township and the people that live in Lake Andrew, it's not good, folks. It's bad, and that's why we are in the movement right now to take over subdivision zoning. Because we're not happy. There's a number of us that are extremely upset with certain people. And I'll end it with one more comment. The relationship is bad. You need a liquor permit.
Sir, I'm gonna stop you right there because I've asked you once to talk to.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'll come back to you then. All right.
Well past.
I would have one more point, then I'm done.
Okay.
You need a liquor permit. State of Minnesota mandates. You can't get around it. It has to be approved by Lake Andrew Township. And if you want to have Sunday liquor, it has to go to a vote. My opinion right now, 10% of the people in Lake Andrew support this project. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Hartley? Thank you. Carolyn Hattlestead.
Hello. I have mostly questions tonight. First of all, can I just ask who on the commission made up the viewing committee?
All of us except for Mr. Nladner had a conflict at the last minute, so we all had the opportunity to view it.
Okay, all right.
Oh, okay.
I was able to view it earlier.
Okay,
We all did.
Sorry about that.
good,
We all did.
good. And my next question, how many of you ever been to a destination golf course?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
How many of you have ever been to a destination golf course?
Looks like none.
None. Okay. So in my previous life, I sat on many Planning and Zoning Commission hearings and meetings. And viewing committees, go to the site, but if they had questions about, well, what an operation would be like, the first time that there was a 10,000 herd dairy in the county, well, nobody knew what that looked like. They went and visited them. They saw that, they learned what it was like when Benson considered putting the Fibromin facility there. They actually went to England to smell it, to see what it was like before they made their planning and zoning decision. This project is so immense, has so many different layers and components. It's not a 9-hole golf course in Atwater. This is complex, and there are buildings proposed, lodging proposed, liquor license, and a lot of different factors that I'm not sure that we are all aware of, it that you may not be aware of, because it's just not an animal that's available to see. And I guess I would encourage you to wait, maybe go tour some of these destination golf sites and see what it's all about before that decision is made here. I have another question. How are people going to get to the site? I heard reference to the Wilmer Airport. Are people going to be flying in on little more corporate jets, private jets? Is the airport going to be able to handle that? Are they going to be coming into St. Cloud Airport? Are there going to be limos, supplied by the Tepetonka to bring them from the airport out to the site? I have heard speculation that there's possibility of helicopters being used to bring people in. If that's true, is there going to be a helicopter landing site? Tepetonka has beautiful expanded Sibley Park to the north, which abuts now County Road 40 with the new addition of the DeLong property, which is where horse trail and a new bike trail. And to the south, there's the Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center. People are outdoors. They're, the education with the children at Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center. They're canoeing. People are riding bike. I mean, if by any chance there are plans to have a helicopter pad to bring people from St. Cloud Airport in or from Wilmer Airport in, I can't imagine how that would disrupt the enjoyment of Sibley Park, Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center. People riding horses, you got low-flying helicopters coming in. It wouldn't be good. And again, maybe that's not even a possibility, but you know what? Another phrase I heard tonight when I think Commissioner Watson asked about something, and the response was, well, there's something to the fact that, well, nothing is planned yet. I think there are a lot of options, that this proposal has a lot of open ends, and might be a lot of, well, nothing is planned yet involved that could come back to bite us in the future without slow, careful time. Former Commissioner Harlan Madsen, if I recall him correctly saying him in the past, because he would get a little upset sometimes, I think, when people would come in, well, we've spent a lot of money, we've heard reference to a lot of money being spent already on this project, and people would come, well, we got this, we need to get this permit done because we've spent money and we got to go. And he would say something to the effect that, it's not our problem that you've spent that money. And if it's a good project now, it'll be a good project next year when we've had time to look at all the details. I would strongly urge you to take that time. There are a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of what ifs. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a plan for a helicopter landing site on the location?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've never heard or had a discussion with anybody. We will have no helicopter site at Tepetonka.
Thank you. Any other questions from those comments? Commissioner Imdak?
One of the things, and I'd love to visit some of those destination golf courses, but number one, I don't golf very well, and I don't have the time to travel to them, but is there much difference between the construction of a destination golf course versus Little Crow or another 18-hole golf course? I know destination versus public, I get that distinction, but under the construction and the environmental impacts.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, the golf course is very much the same. It's what you choose to build. What does the land give you? And the unique thing, what really is, it's more than in vogue. It's literally part of the theme is to build destination golf courses on sites that they are called minimalist golf courses. So you do very, very little work on the land itself. Our Australian design team is all over the world. The Deniks have done over 100 golf courses. They both agree they've never seen a site that required so little work. The holes are there, so we're really fortunate. But insofar as the infrastructure goes, you have irrigation systems and you have grassing components and so forth. And again, fortunately, we're looking to use things that some people might not like because it's not as green a grass. It uses less water, but the people that play these destination golf courses really, think of western Nebraska, the prairies there. It's very much what we'll be like.
Okay, next on the list is Eric Hattlestead.
Good evening, Eric Hattlestead. I farm in Lake Andrew Township, live in New London. Comments tonight are offered in reference to the overall process. I'm here to speak on behalf of hundreds of community members who have been disrespected and ignored by this entire proceeding and process. Rather than participate in what is clearly a kangaroo court, they've decided to stay home. I could, as others have gone over, have listed the myriad of environmental, social, and economic concerns about this project, but it is clear to anyone with a pair of eyes or ears that the decision about this project has been made long ago. It is clear that some developers will always have special access and a fast track to the decision-making process in this county. Time and time again, whether it's handing $45 million to the largest dairy operation in the world, to writing a blank check to a parasitic golf course that is reviled by the host community, this county is using its authority to promote monopoly power and the projects prioritized by the ultra-rich. A large and growing number of community residents understand that their voice does not matter and will not be heard when measured against the rich and powerful. Tonight, when this board writes another blank check to these developers, it will once again confirm that this is all theater. It will confirm that rural people can be bulldozed off the land because a wealthy developer waves a bunch of money around. And it will prove once again, it will show that rural residents have little to no input about what their communities are subjected to. I dare you to prove me wrong.
Is there any questions for Mr. Hattlestead? Thank you. Sharon Nelson would be next on the list.
Hello, Sharon Nelson. I own property on Lake Florida and have lived in the New London area for about 40-some years. I just want to say that I support Jean East, John Hartley, Hattlestead's, on their comments. And I think that they've really hit a lot of points. I think that speaking just in general, supporting their comments, I'm speaking for a lot of people that I know that I've talked to about this project. And I think that the county board has not done their due diligence for environmental issues strong enough for how important this project is, how big it is. And I don't think the local people have had adequate input, as they have said. So I really support more environmental study being done. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next on the list is Betty Rusted.
Good evening. My name is Betty Rusted. I live in Spicer, but I grew up on a small family farm about 2 miles west of the Lake Andrew Township Hall, and I also have a lake lot on Games Lake. So Lake Andrew Township is very important to me. I am extremely disappointed in the county's decision to not go forward with the EIS. I believe we really need to slow down and do everything we can to ensure that our environment, water, and wildlife are protected. Northern Kandiyohi County depends on our lakes for recreation. With climate change, more severe weather, we have already seen the runoff impacts on our lakes' water quality. Some of us have other activities that we enjoy other than golfing that really depend on our keeping our whole community and environment safe and preserve the water quality. It's very important. I just feel I applaud the young folks, such as Eric and others, that have really gone the extra mile to be looking into this and researching it and standing up for a lot of us. Also, I think that I know you care about the area, but people can easily be influenced by money and power. I feel for our younger generation who will be impacted by this decision immensely, and there is no going back. Once we have polluted, we have polluted. And so I feel it's very important that you listen to the other agencies, such as the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. The landfill concern really is concerning, and I think it really needs to be explored further. It is time for Kandiyohi County Commissioners, zoning authorities to step up and not only listen to those with power. What is there to lose? Just to pause. Allow all the agencies to do their assessments and come back to the table with all the information you need to make a truly informed decision. I have talked to a lot of people who feel very powerless. Is this what we really want to do and make people feel like in our community? I know you have made the decision, but I beg you to come back to the table and look at this and further consider the EIS, to consider the impacts of the decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rusted. We actually have not made the decision. That's what we're here tonight to vote on.
I feel like it's been made.
Gotcha.
Okay,
All
sorry.
right.
I feel like it's been made.
Okay.
That's what I meant to say.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Rusted? Okay. Don Lindquist, is that correct? That what it looks like. Dean? Did I get that right, sir? Dean Lindquist?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioners. My name is Dean Lindquist, and I've been a resident over on Lake Florida for the last 20 years. I am neither rich, nor am I famous, nor am I powerful. But full disclosure, my wife and I are, my wife of 50 years, by the way, are owners in Tepetonka, along with 15 other the residents of Lake Andrew Township. They are my neighbors, they are my friends, they go to church with me. There are 37 other members in Kanieyahi County. I don't need a helicopter. It's 1.25 miles away from my house. Those other neighbors are friends. They're wonderful people, contrary to what you might be hearing. Our wish is only to share a great golf experience. My wife and I love golf. I want to share them with my friends. I want to applaud you all on this zoning and planning for the hours that you've spent listening. With that position comes responsibility, and I believe you are fulfilling that responsibility. I understand that every one of you are out at the site, every single one of you, some of you more than once. I understand that you were out there with the experts, with the engineers. You were out there with the people involved in the planning, gathering information, investigating, researching. I also understand you were asking the hard questions, fact-finding. That's what good committee members do. For that, I thank you. So I want to thank this committee for doing its research, taking your responsibility seriously, and relying on facts. I respect your position, and I have the utmost confidence in your decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lindquist. Any questions for Mr. Lindquist? Okay. John Lidstrom. Lindstrom?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. My name is John Lindstrom. I live in Lake Andrew Township, and I'm pleased to be here tonight to share a few views. And first of all, I want to commend I want to issue a little shout out to the Planning Commission staff. I went to the office this morning, and they were very gracious and welcoming to me, and they actually showed me the file. They asked me if I wanted to take the file with me and go across to another little room where I could sit and read the file and read the application. And I thought that was absolutely wonderful public service. So I commend Eric Van Dyken for your staff that you have, and I thought that was just a great public service that she did. I'm primarily concerned about in reading the conditional use application about water and about wetlands and about wells. 3 Ws, I put. Water, wetland, and wells. And the water issues have been thoroughly discussed, but on the other hand, there's lots of references to, quote, best management practices, things like, and my question is, who's going to decide whether or not those best management practices have been followed? Who makes the determination that they are being followed? I don't know. I also noted that in the reviewing the zoning ordinance, that nothing can be done until all permits are issued. So I assume that means all permits from the Department of Natural Resources, the Department of Health, state and federal authorities that may have some bearing on the well issues or water issues. And I assume I'm correct in that, so that nothing can be done and correct and constructed until all those permits have been reviewed and either granted or denied. I would hope that would be the correct understanding of the existing zoning law. Finally, I would make a reference to something that has not been discussed, and that is whether or not on the 230-some acres, there are any cultural issues that need to be addressed. Are there Indian mounds, burial sites? And I don't know that anybody has been out there to review that area to determine whether or not any of those sites exist. But if so, and if that has not been done, that should be done. I know that in dealing with some of the issues at Sibley Park, that they have had to delay certain projects until they've received certain approvals. So that's another area that needs to be, I think, carefully examined before construction is authorized. I was a little bit confused about the whole issue of cabins and something called a conservation district. I don't know if that qualifies as a development district or whether it's a planned unit development or a cluster or other things that are referenced in the zoning ordinance. And I understand from listening tonight that that area is not to be considered at this meeting. So I'm a little confused because it was in the application. Perhaps that part of it is being withdrawn. I don't really know. I know that there's talk in the application about an event center. Whether that's part of the program is uncertain in my mind. There was also a question by one of the commissioners about various other events that might be happening at the proposed course. I saw where Mr. Hogyorty was quoted in a Star Tribune article that said that the club would host college tournaments and PGA section events. My question would be, if that happens, whether or not the 60 parking spaces would be sufficient to house all the people that would be coming for that. But the other thing I would note, and just sort of a light comment, was that the zoning ordinance, I think, before granting a conditional use permit, the condition has to be somewhat consistent with the current use of the area. And I know my good friend Raleigh here collects and sells golf balls, used golf balls, and he's very good at finding them. And I would doubt that there are many white little golf balls in Shakopee Creek, but maybe after this course it gets developed, there'll be lots of them there. So go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lindstrom.
Mr. Chair,
Yep. Sorry.
I got a couple questions.
Sure.
And I know you and I go back kind of a long ways.
Sure we do.
From church, so I'm not here to set you up I'm not here to set you up anyway.
That's
But
right.
I didn't
I've been
quite,
set up before.
I didn't quite, you said water, wetlands, and wells. Could you be a little specific about what your questions are regarding?
Well, for example, my understanding was that there's wetlands, there's a 20-acre wetland piece. 4 acres were going to be impacted by the development of the course. And one of the things that they were going to do to mitigate that was to buy wetland bank credits of some sort. I'm not sure how that all works. I don't know anything about that. But my preference would be, and I think I would strongly urge that any impacted wetlands be replaced by a wetland bank, either on the property or on some other property. I think that's what happens with various highway projects.
So, and I'm asking these so that they have a chance to answer them appropriately for us. And the distinction between water and then the last one was the well or wells.
Right. So with respect to wells, I mean, you know, the DNR has been severely reprimanded, I think, by some of the federal agencies because they have not been enforcing some of the existing regulations, especially when it comes to nitrates. And there's an area apparently in southeastern Minnesota that are seriously concerned about nitrate pollution in both private and public wells. And I know that even in this area, there's a lot of concern about nitrates with respect to areas around Clear City, that the nitrate level in some wells is close to, if not exceeding, state standards, and now federal standards. So I would hope that the wells that are going to be developed here, one well for putting water into the reservoir for irrigation purposes, and other wells for consumption by users at the clubhouse and the residents or cabins, that they're called. So that those standards have to be met.
And then the first one was water, and maybe that tied together with the well.
Water, yeah, with respect to the Shakopee Creek, that's
Oh, okay.
public waters.
Okay, got it.
Part of the shoreland management provisions of the zoning ordinance.
Waters of the USA, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lindstrom. Regarding the cultural issues, can anybody from Tepetonka speak to that and the studies done in that?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the environmental assessment worksheet does have a section for cultural resources. The State Historic Preservation Office was contacted about any potential known or suspected cultural resources on the property, and none were identified. It's a typical process with an EAW to go through a State Historic Preservation Office inquiry, and that's what was completed.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, I don't know, I think Mr. Lindstrom had some questions that perhaps can be answered by members there. One talked about waters of the USA.
Yeah.
You know, the stream bank. And then I don't know if you'd want to talk about wetland bank and wetland mitigation, and then maybe there's somebody here can talk about nitrates in wells.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Mr. Lindstrom's correct in that the State Board and Water Soil Resources that regulates wetlands in Minnesota prefers that wetland banks are used for mitigation, and that's exactly what the proposer intends to do, is to use a wetland mitigation bank in the watershed. As it relates to waters of the U.S., that's a designation through the Clean Water Act. So Shakopee Creek, for example, would be a water of the U.S. If there was to be any impact to Shakopee Creek, it would require a Section 404 permit through the Corps of Engineers. The Corps of Engineers will have to issue an approval for this project as well. Did that answer the
As
question?
long as you're talking about, because I'm familiar with the farm business and the buffer law, and this is a water of the USA, not a ditch, so a ditch would require 8 feet. What is the requirement for buffer on the Shakopee Creek?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I don't know, maybe Jason knows the buffer exactly. In many cases, the golf course won't come within hundreds of feet of the creek. In a couple areas, I believe we have a 25-foot buffer where fairways come close to the creek. But in any case, all areas where the stream bank is located near golf will be reinforced and restored so that there's no erosion that would occur.
And I'm not sure that you want to address the nitrates and the well water issue, but if you can, knock yourself out.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I'm not sure exactly what the question was about nitrates in the well.
Well, if I, on Mr. Lindstrom's behalf, he talked about areas of the state that have some high nitrate areas in residential wells as a result of cultural practices, whether it's farming or
Sure.
irrigation or whatever.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, Mr. Chair, what he's alluding to is there are areas of different geology of sand, let's say. Just north of here toward like Roscoe, for example, there are high nitrates in wells because it's very sandy terrain. In this particular location, that's not as big an issue because of the glacial geology of the area. It's more glacial till, so that it's not as prevalent, I think, on this property as in some areas of the states where it's sandier soils. We also have Bob Tyne here that can maybe speak to nitrates in wells a little bit, if that might help.
Chair and board members. There's a big difference in geologies in the state of Minnesota. Our family's drilled wells in the southeastern part of Minnesota. We actually I have an office in Rochester, Minnesota. They have a huge problem with nitrates in southeastern Minnesota. Reason being is it's a big geology switch. That corner of the state was never glaciated. It's what they call a karst. There's a karst formation that comes right to the surface. What it is, it's a weathered limestone formation. And there's no buffer or till that lays over the bedrock. So any nitrate that goes on the soil doesn't get a chance to get filtered out through natural means before it gets to the groundwater. And that's why they experience the high nitrate levels in that part of the state. They also require down there that you go through certain aquifers, sometimes get to the second and third aquifer, you have to case the top two off to mitigate the chance of obtaining nitrates in your well. Fortunately, we don't experience that in this part of Minnesota because it's been glaciated. Right where the property in question sits, there's 400 plus feet of glaciated material above the bedrock. And 300 of that is filtering material. So we just don't experience the high nitrate levels. Now, if you go just a little bit north, you get up into the shallow plains like up at Park Rapids and even in part of the Bonanza Valley where you have just sand for 30 feet and they're pulling water out of that. That type of soil is can very easily be contaminated by nitrates because there's nothing to filter it out. It just goes down. It's there. They're really fortunate where they're at because the soil type will really do a good job of mitigating any problems with nitrates.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Ms. Johnson, did you want an opportunity to speak, sir?
Hi, my name is Pat Johnson, and I live on the north shore of Green Lake, so I'm not in the backyard of this project, but I care about it because I care about the quality of water in the entire county. You know, you actually bottle the stuff here, so it's a good quality water, and I think we can't view it as an unending resource. We can kind of bootstrap ourselves into the idea of agriculture uses this much water, then another use can, like golf courses, which don't produce food, they produce entertainment, and I golf too, but it's not producing food. So if they do that, then somebody else can use that. So I think that's kind of an unfortunate argument to use. It's not unending. My question is one really basic one. I see in the draft findings in order, and that presumably is what you're working from here. I don't really see anything in there saying that anything we've heard tonight about what they are going to do that is subject to this particular permit is required to happen, and no more. And that seems to be a critical condition if you even consider that permit. I myself would advocate for the additional conditions that I think have been submitted to you. But I think at the very basis, we should ask ourselves whether any other amenities that, other than what we've been hearing tonight, will be part of this, because there can be amenity creep. And then there's a future issue here too. A lot of times these things happen and it doesn't turn out the way we heard it. And I think it's important at the very least that a condition be that it occurs as we've heard it in detail. It's on tape. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Okay, that's all that I have on the list for people who wish to speak from the public. So that will close the public comment portion of this hearing. We will move on to discussion among the commission members regarding this application. I was going to ask if I can start with you. And then also, Mr. Van Dyken, if you would, I'm going to start with you with, if you could do the findings and then the conditions, and then the findings and commissions from the township, and then if you could, it seems like we really need some clarification on the cabin issue.
Maybe a short break for some of us that was.
All right. Commissioner Nissen is requesting a 10-minute break, so we will, or a short break, 5 to 10
I don't think I
minutes.
need
We'll
10
reconvene in 9:30. That's 6 minutes from now.
6-minute break. Thanks, Raleigh. I thought it would be me.
Do you know anything about the landfill and the leaking?
We're hot. I said our mics are hot, so our mics are hot. So the plume is it? I don't know how well I can draw, but so if this is your soil, here's your surface, and somewhere around here, 40 to 50 is the aquifer in which the plume is in. So this is where most of the residential wells also draw their water from. In this zone. And as you go deeper down,
It's hard, isn't it?
my understanding is there's over 100 feet of
Plans for tomorrow on a bonus day, a bonus fall day?
bonus fall day. Did you farm?
Must be super.
So yeah, it is. Water takes a piece. Grab. It is considered that this clay is a very good barrier between water that's almost water can be drawn from down here. So
I would call our operation reduced tillage.
Mixed no-till.
Not no-till, but it's reduced. It's not even, I started strip tilling.
We've been told it's not
Last year, first year.
so therefore they reduce.
But we have a fair amount.
The other thing is, they would. Well,
No, this doesn't work.
We'll get the That would be an IT question. I think they were doing that, but mostly for posterity. I don't know if they were going to put it out there. You could ask Scott or Logan.
Okay, I've got a recording myself.
Okay.
The sound is better on the
Yeah.
YouTube than what I'm hearing. Thanks.
All right. So it's environmental.
Yeah, but we've been doing it this way for the last 40 years. Come on.
The main reason that people are going to be more is because these things there's no response to suppression. Going the other way, they were making
No, I understand. I just wondered.
and like in
And then just,
do less than
I understand that this is
things
There's still time.
I guess so. I mean, unless they would have voluntarily done it.
Yeah.
But I suspect a lot of the work wasn't done.
And that's my question. Thank you.
All right.
So the leaking is.
Well, the water, seepage problems as well.
You know what that last one was?
They were one of the others. When you say leakage,
Yeah. Had a golf we had that one 5 years ago. We haven't had that outfit come out. Craig was getting excited. He says, we got to get them out here.
it's moving on its
I didn't like that.
attention.
So then we tried to find the shut-offs. It was on the second. Everybody's supposed to have their stuff. Yeah, we found
They're saying,
don't know where they're at.
what the hydrologists are saying is that no, because there's such a thick layer of insulation between
Gary,
your
just for
pumping water
clarification,
down here.
when we refer to Wetlands Conservation Act,
If you know how water.
I believe so. I think it's 103G. Gary's kind of like the day-to-day expert on that guy that lives in that, so, but I believe it is 103G. But
well, that's what I found.
Once they got that,
These bathrooms.
Trying to look it up. I didn't, it wasn't in the ordinance, and then it seemed to be that it had to be for law. So that's what I was- I just like details like
Yeah,
that added in
absolutely. Well,
because it's specific.
that's the lawyer in you.
Yes, yes.
That doesn't just go away, does it?
oh, that hasn't been brought up, and I'm not gonna go there. No, I gotta live there.
3 years learning it, and,
A lifetime practicing it?
well, not
Or-
quite for me, because I started out as a law librarian
Oh,
first,
okay.
so,
Well, you were in the field.
yes.
I'm going to call the meeting back to order from our break.
Yep. Yep. I did read that. Thank you.
We're gonna go over this and this.
All right, Mr. Van Dyken, if you would mind, be so kind as to proceed, that would be great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I maybe propose this order here. We do have a document from the township that I would like to go through item by item. I would first like to make note of the staff report. The staff report does recommend approval of the request. The findings, I think, would be something to parse a little bit further on, so I will not reference those in detail at this point. I would note that staff has proposed in proposing or recommending approval, has proposed 13 attached conditions. Those conditions are intended to be targeted, I guess you would say, in particular on environmental concerns. I think since the beginning of this process, when I originally sat down with the proposers, my focus has been on environmental matters more than anything, because the nature of a golf course has its, I would say, its greatest potential impacts there, as opposed to some other types of things that we might consider that have more inherent land use conflicts in other areas around how they're used and how those uses impact neighbors. So it's been the environmental concerns that have been at my forefront. In particular, of course, we would note that environmental review was required for this project, was completed, and that has been passed for some time now. It is not something that we can legally revisit, so I did hear some calls or requests for the Planning Commission to send something back to the board. That would not be an action that the Planning Commission could take, because the board is not and the county as an LGU is not allowed to revisit that decision once that process has been finalized. I guess you might call it almost akin to a double jeopardy. The staff conditions, if you'd like, Mr. Chair, staff proposed conditions, I could read those verbatim. Would that be your will?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to read through these. I will read fairly quickly in the interest of time. I'll try to be clear, though. Proposed condition number 1, signage shall not exceed zoning ordinance standards, shall be permitted through the Department of Environmental Services, hereinafter referred to as department. Number 2, proposed bluff impact zone protections provided in Chapter 12 of the zoning ordinance shall be adhered to. Staff from the department shall review and approve any work proposed in a bluff impact zone. 3, shore impact zone protections in Chapter 12 of the zoning ordinance shall be adhered to. Staff from the department shall review and approve any work proposed in the shore impact zone. 4, all wetland impacts shall be reviewed for Wetlands Conservation Act compliance. 5, all stipulations of the required Minnesota Department of Natural Resources water appropriation permit shall be adhered to. Any violation of the DNR permit will constitute a violation of this conditional use permit. Groundwater use demonstrated by the DNR to have negatively impacted neighboring wells or area surface water resources may require immediate cessation of all irrigation. 6, on-site dining shall not be open to the general public, but must be used only by members and their guests. 7, lighting shall be planned and installed such that it serves to illuminate the desired areas without producing dangerous or intrusive glare onto adjacent roads or properties. Staff from the department shall have the authority to judge the safety and intrusion of lighting. 8, all sewage generated on site shall be treated with a subsurface sewage treatment system that is permitted through the department. Any type 4 SSTS shall be managed by a licensed service provider, and records of this service and performance of the system shall be maintained and produced upon request of the department. 9, all site entrances from County Road 40 shall be reviewed and approved by the Office of the County Engineer. County Engineer shall judge and approve the number and location of site entrances from County Road 40. Any new site entrances from 3rd Street Northeast must be approved by the Lake Andrew Township Board. 10, runoff shall be regulated under an approved MPCA NPDS permit. Any violation of the NPDS permit shall constitute a violation of this conditional use permit. Erosion control measures shall be sufficient at all times to protect water resources from contaminated runoff. Staff from the department shall have the authority to require additional erosion control measures as deemed necessary to achieve the proper protection. That's a typo. All chemical applications regulated under Minnesota Department of Agriculture shall adhere to applicable licensing, handling, and application standards. 12, records of chemical and nutrient applications shall be maintained, and such records shall be produced at the request of department staff. 13, department staff shall be allowed access to all grounds upon reasonable notice for the purposes of determining compliance with this conditional use permit. And as noted, we did get a set of proposed conditions from the township today. They were referenced earlier by Mr. Swart as he represented the township as their board chair. And I would like to go through those one by one with some recommendations and comments on them, Mr. Chair, if you would at this time. Proposed condition from the township, number 1, findings of fact stated above are hereby adopted and incorporated herein. Mr. Chair, I would recommend against this condition for the following reason. It's not actually a condition. Findings of fact are different than conditions. Conditions are meant to mitigate something in particular, and since the findings don't accomplish anything of that sort, I don't believe that would actually even be a legally adopted condition. So I would recommend against condition proposed number 1. Number 2, the proposed landowner shall keep the property and any structures in a neat, clean, safe, and orderly manner at all times. I'm not against the sentiment of this condition, Mr. Chair. I would note that these terms are very subjective and do make for an administration that is particularly challenging, if not impossible. I would argue, of course, that there's always a measure of subjectivity in many of these. We do leave discretion, and we have judgments that are to be made. I'm not overly opposed to it. I would note that it would be a difficult condition to enforce for the very nature of its subjectivity of the word, such as neat. I do not anticipate it being a problem, but I would make that comment on it. Proposed condition number 3, I would propose to adopt or include with the recommended conditions with the following changes, that the word cabins be struck in as much as this conditional use permit does not consider cabins, and we should not condition them. And I would also perhaps remove the word internal driveways. I'm not sure that there's any public interest served in regulating a location of an internal driveway per se. It's a level of detail probably not terribly helpful. And then I would slot in there the following dates and reference, dated September 11, 2023, and prepared by OCM. Proposed condition number 4, the grading of their property shall be constructed in substantial compliance with the Tepetonka Club LLC plans dated and prepared. I would recommend against this condition for this reason. We are not necessarily interested in the overall topographical layout of the golf course and don't necessarily intend to micromanage that. What we desire to be concerned about from a staff perspective is the potential environmental impacts. I think those have been looked at closely in the environmental review, and they have been further conditioned in staff proposed conditions. And so whether or not a grade changes on hole number 9, if it's not in the shore impact zone, if it's not in the bluff impact zone, if it's being protected during its construction, all conditions that are proposed, I don't see that this would serve a purpose for the public. So that would be my recommendation on number 4. Number 5, this would be recommended against by staff, in particular, also in conjunction with the county attorney, and there will be several of these that I will mention that the county attorney has specifically advised me to advise against. I would note here that the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America has guidelines on things as far ranging as the composition of bunker sand to a code of conduct, and I would offer to you that to incorporate all those guidelines as conditions of this permit it would place us in great legal peril, according to the county attorney, and it would frankly be something that we would be regulating stuff well beyond what we probably could. Court cases have clearly established that we have to have a nexus with the use, and we have to have a reason for the condition. It has to be reasonable. So something like operation of a golf course, a code of conduct that's recommended or guidelines by the Superintendent's Association, if we were to incorporate that as a standard for them, we would open ourselves up for legal challenge, and we would be requiring much beyond what would be in our scope of authority.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Imdet.
may I ask a question at this point?
Absolutely.
Of Mr. Van Dyken? So the first sentence there, if you put a period after permit, is that already included in the conditions that the county has put in?
Yeah, so I mean, it's I guess I'd say it's a truism that that's the nature of a conditional use permit, that you have to comply with the terms of the conditional use permit.
So that would be assumed under the conditions that the county places on a bike?
Yes, that is the very nature of a CUP, correct. Proposed condition number 6, I would not have staff would have no objection to and would recommend to include. I would notice that there's a typo in the middle sentence that says submit the noise control plan. I think that's meant to be noise control plan. And then I just perhaps curiously in the last sentence here, it talks about plan approved by the county board, but there is no process here. It's just department approval. In not county board, but then it references a county board approval. So I'm not sure how that would work. So I guess I would perhaps change that from county board to department there, because it just inserts the county board where they have had no involvement to that point. So that would be my two changes to correct that typo and change that from county board to department there in the last sentence. The last, condition number 7, I would propose this change. The first part that talks about a landscaping plan, I don't think serves a compelling public need, something to be mitigated. A golf course essentially is one large landscaping plan. But I am sensitive to the township concern about berms and snow catch there. So I would propose that condition number 7, or as would be renumbered later, but this one, be accepted for the last sentence, but actually go a little bit further to include a township review and comment. So what we would like to do is say that no berms or landscaping planting along 3rd Street Northeast shall curtail the prevailing winds, creating an excessive deposit of snow upon the roadway. And then I would propose that we add a follow-on sentence to say that review of these berms or a plan for the berms and landscaping shall be accomplished by the township with comments and feedback provided to the department. So I can wordsmith that a little bit better, but I think you understand what I'm getting at there. The goal is for the township to actually have some feedback to us on the particulars of that. Because what we don't want to do is establish something and find out later that it's not quite meeting what we had hoped.
Commissioner Nys.
So you're striking everything but the last sentence?
Yes, and then adding the supplemental sentence.
Got it.
Proposed condition number 8 would be recommended as accepted by staff to add. Proposed condition 9, it's a little non-specific in what's being consulted upon, but it is not I would say an objectionable or burdensome condition. And so I think that as it speaks to safety, that it would be an appropriate condition to include. Proposed condition 10 would be a condition that staff would recommend to include, as would be conditions 11 and 12 and 13, with the exception on 13 that I would recommend that the time there be amended on the AM to 6 o'clock AM for this particular purpose. A golfing event that would be, say, perhaps a fundraising event or something, depending on the timing of tee times, in consultation, asking the applicant about this. 8 o'clock can be a fairly late time for people to actually tee off. So if somebody's having an event and they can't tee off till 8 o'clock, they might be more prone to 6 o'clock. I would recommend an earlier time there. Generally speaking, that is not something that we would expect to be boisterous or problematic in the neighborhood. So I would recommend changing that time to 6 o'clock in the AM. On number 14, I would leave and recommend as is to accept. Number 15, I would recommend to accept and leave as is. I would recommend on number 16 that this is regulated by the county sanitarian, and I would recommend against this to keep us out of cross purposes with the county sanitarian, because we don't, those things like catering rules are covered entirely by our county sanitarian, need permitting approval. They dictate where those things can or can't come from. And so I would recommend that be left in the purview of the county sanitarian where he has expertise. Condition number 17 is covered in a staff proposed condition, so as opposed to doubling up here, and I would note that we would otherwise scratch the word township there because the township does not have on-site sewage treatment standards to enforce. Proposed condition number 18 is, I believe, redundant. These are all things that are required elsewhere. And we're going to get into just a few more of those in a row here, where I'm going to offer to you that they're redundant, and they actually are redundant with some county conditions, they're redundant with requirements of the law, and they're redundant internally in that they're kind of requiring a lot of the same things. We're kind of seeing a number of times there's a follow all the rules, get all your permits, follow the rules. We're going to see that a few times in a row here, and I'm going to recommend that we do not keep adding conditions that have essentially that same language. So I would say the same thing with condition number 19. Condition number
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Eric, are you saying then that because of the redundancy, we should strike them?
That would be my recommendation. And if there needs to be further discussion, by all means, let me know. Proposed condition number 20 that's not actually the proper order of things. The landowner does not record the conditional use permit. That's a duty and function of the county, and they're charged for that in their permit fee. So we do that already, and so I would recommend we not acquiesce to that. Condition number 21 is another one that the county attorney has recommended we do not adopt. We do not, by the county attorney's opinion, want to tie our own county liabilities to township liabilities, particularly in parsing legal costs, et cetera. And so I would not be recommending against the county attorney's opinion there or his recommendation. And we will not, we have never, nor would we have reason to be charging the applicant for our administration or enforcement. That's the work that we do on a regular basis for all permit holders. The condition proposed number 22 is not a direct replacement, but it is very similar to the staff proposed condition, and I prefer the staff language to be able to judge that, because I've had that problem in the past where that was not stated explicitly. Proposed condition number 23 is covered in county proposed or staff proposed conditions, so I recommend against it. Proposed condition number 24 is probably not necessary, but I would not be opposed to it. They aren't anywhere near and would not likely at all approach their impervious surface coverage for an A2 district, but certainly if the township feels it's helpful, I would not be opposed to leaving it in. I would recommend against condition number 25. I don't see any impact of a dwelling there, and we would not want to condition things just for the sake of conditioning them. There's a property right associated with establishment of a residence there. It might be very natural for, say, a golf course superintendent or a staff member to live on the site, and I don't see a compelling public interest in limiting a residence there. 26 proposed condition was covered under proposed condition number 8. Actually covers the same thing, so I would recommend against 26 as a redundancy. Number 27 is also a redundancy of number 8. Actually, let me go back and correct myself. 27 is the redundancy of number 8. 26, is one where I'm not sure that if there was someone that parked on the grass, so this reads as follows: there shall be no parking on the property except in areas designated for parking. I would offer that there's probably no public harm in if someone parked on an overflow in a part of a grass. So I'm not sure that actually serves a real compelling public purpose. Number 28, I would recommend to accept and recommend that condition. Number 29 is another redundancy that has stated, and number number 30 is basically almost an exact redundancy of number 29, which is redundant of before. Number 31 is recommended not to accept by Shane. This is probably his strongest legal opinion, that we would not be able to provide for the township to provide their own review through our process, as if we would be tying our liabilities to township judgments there, and that would be something that the county attorney would not be able to or willing to accept. Proposed condition number 32 actually was proposed by to be made stronger. And so this, instead of limiting the hours for helicopters, the proposed condition would be that no private helicopters shall land at the golf course. This would, of course, then not preclude Lifelink or something like that, but no private helicopters, so that would not be a transportation option to and from the proposed facility. And then proposed condition number 33, I would note that the cabins is not something that we would want to put in there, and beyond that, the restaurant is already proposed to be limited in the staff proposed condition to members and their guests. So that would be a redundancy in number 33. That is quick, I understand. There was a lot of ground to cover, so that's why I was trying to be quick. And I would open myself up to any questions, comments, concerns you have about that feedback. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Imdet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Van Dyken, going back to number 31, I think any citizen can ask about whether or not conditional use permits are being followed as approved, correct?
That is correct. And I want to be careful here, because I don't want to send the picture that the county, so let's just say someone from the township came in and said, hey, can we go over this permit together? Or talk to me about what you have seen and what you're experiencing. I'm glad to share in that. What this permit does is goes a lot further than that, is it infers, if not outright states, that the township conduct a review to ensure compliance and be granted access for that. And because there's no regulatory authority there, the county attorney is, I guess, basically saying that he's refusing to say that that would be in a good move for the county, because it would open us up to significant liabilities, in his opinion.
Commissioner Imdet.
Just to follow up for clarity, but anytime there's any suspicion of any part of the permit that is being violated, for example, if I drive by a neighbor and I'm seeing cars that don't have license plates on them, which I know is a violation of our nuisance amendment, I can report that at any time. And so anybody can bring to your attention any issues that might be taking place out there. We have to be careful with frivolity, but if there's a violation, they come to you and you go out and inspect, correct?
That's correct. And we would give special, we take all complaints and concerns seriously, but we would give special weight and attention, to things from the township. And that's what I want to stress here, because the goal in recommending that is not to push the township aside or say we don't want to hear from you, or we don't want your comments, concerns, or perceptions of how it's operating. That's not at all the goal. The goal is to recognize separations, and that's where the county attorney was coming from.
Chair.
Commissioner Watson.
I'd like a clarification of number 13, just on the time that you stated. What would be the hours of operation that you're suggesting?
So the special event there shall be limited to, the only proposed change I would have there is change 8 a.m. to 6 a.m. And that's particularly within golfing in mind, which would be a natural type of event.
Anything else, board members?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lander?
Number 8 on the counties. I'm kind of naive. What is type 4 SSTS? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Milner. Type 4 systems are a class of system in Minnesota that provide pretreatment. They're what we would call an off-the-shelf pretreatment. So basically, it's a pre-engineered. I inspected one today on Big Canyon High Lake, and what it basically does is it introduces a third component to a standard on-site sewage treatment, which is typically tank and soil treatment area. A type 4 system would include additional treatment right in the middle. It's usually a mechanical treatment of some sort, usually aeration, sometimes a different type of filtration. And why I put that in there specifically is I would anticipate this type of system would be needed for their food service facilities in particular. Food service facilities put out much higher waste strengths than we encounter out of a domestic household. And so with high fats, oils, and greases and high biological oxygen demand, we basically need that middle component. So I anticipate there'll be one there, and so I wanted to include the condition there so that I have some additional enforceability to say, hey, it's in your permit, not just your operating permit, but your one that keeps you in business.
So in layman's terms, it's like a municipality for a private homeowner, prefabbed.
In old terms, we would call it a performance system.
Okay.
Versus a standard system.
Thank you.
Any other questions, board members, comments regarding the township proposed conditions?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Watson?
I'd like to note on item number 27 that there's a differentiation between parking in the road right away than parking on a township road.
Yeah, absolutely, because I'm not understanding either much.
Commissioner Watson, thank you. Would it be fair to say, though, that the entire road is contained within the right-of-way?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the proposed township conditions? Okay. Would you like to go, are there any, did anybody submit anything that needs to be brought to, in writing that needs to be brought?
No, I did not receive any other comments in writing. I did not receive any phone calls. And Mr. Chair, if I can, just for a minute, I was probably missed an opportunity there to thank the township for their constructive engagement. It's exactly that type of constructive engagement. I think that is helpful and improves the process. So I'm thankful for that.
Okay, would this be a good time to go through the findings?
Mr. Chair, if that be your will, I can step through them as a support and proposal from staff for a conclusion of a granting of the permit. I think it's maybe helpful to note that this is a project that I've been kind of immersed in for a long time, and it's for those reasons why I felt confident with making the recommendation that I did, because I've had not just the opportunity, but I've had the requirement of having to look at this from a lot of different angles. I've had conversations with both internal and external at the county system, state level on down with about everybody that I can imagine, whether it be from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, from the Department of Health, from the State Historical Preservation Office, from the local historical society, to private engineers, the Department of Natural Resources, Department of Health, our county sanitarian, a little bit of everything all the way across the board, our landfill operator and our solid waste administrator. I've just had I've had a lot of opportunity to speak with a lot of people, and it's because of that I have confidence in making the recommendation that I did. So would you like me to read the staff proposed conditions, and the planning commission can ask questions, provide comment, agree, disagree? Is that what you're,
So, yeah, I was thinking findings.
okay, I'm sorry, you're right. That's a misspeak on my part. Mr. Chair, I would ask you this. Is it premature for you to want to explore the findings before there's a motion on the table? Or are you comfortable actually discussing findings without a motion on the table? That's what I would ask.
That's a good question. That's a fair question. Yeah, board members, I think that it would be good for us to have a discussion regarding some of the comments that were made here tonight, either from Tepetonka or those members of the public, if you wish, maybe before diving into the findings. Anyone have any desire or input, questions, comments on anything they heard or was stated tonight? Anything that you wish to further discuss or consider before we have a motion on the table?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Commissioner Noelder.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. This is what this is all about. I have read a lot of documents the past months that have been sent to me. And when they did the environmental assessment worksheet, there were, I believe, I counted 13 agencies that were contacted with the environmental assessment worksheet. I'm not going to read them all. It's anything from the Department of Agriculture in Minnesota to the US EPA to the state archaeologists to the Indian Affairs Council. For some reason, they don't call them the Native American Affairs Council. I don't know why in our state. But I do want to note that only the Department of Natural Resources actually commented on the environmental action worksheet. Nobody else made a comment about anything. Some other members of our community commented. I've read through all of your comments. They were answered in here. Some of you are here tonight, some of you are not. I just want to say that there has been a lot of discussion about this. And I think it's important to realize that of the 13 agencies, only one actually came and spoke, which is the DNR, who is monitoring the well pumping process throughout this thing. And they're kind of in charge of all that. So I just wanted to put that out there for the record and let everybody know that it has been talked about quite at length with that. And I know it's a very tough issue for a community. So thank you for coming and sharing your opinions. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Noelder.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Watson.
Yeah, I would like to beg the indulgence of Commissioner earlier, that in regard to the supplemental submittal to the environmental assessment worksheet, I have obtained information that the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency did not respond to the EAW as it was published in the Environmental Quality Monitor and submitted to them. In fact, the statement in the report that the state and federal agencies expressed no concern about it is mistaken in regard specifically to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. In fact, what happened is that the MPCA Environmental Review Unit had suspended its triage reviews. And so specifically, the Kansas County EAW was not reviewed by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And as the record of the decision was issued on October 4th by the County Board of Commissioners, they did no further review of it or the documentation. So I just wanted to clarify that information, that it is not necessarily accurate to say that simply because an agency didn't respond that you can conclude they had nothing to say. Some of the agencies didn't respond, perhaps, but in particular the Pollution Control Agency, because they did not have staff to respond. So I just wanted to point that out. If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just want to refer to the findings of fact and indicate that specifically in regard to the question, perhaps more on item number 7, that the proposed use is within the standards of the zoning ordinance. The commission notes that the staff review found no violations of the zoning ordinance, and the proposed site can adequately serve the needs of the proposed use. But I do have a question regarding the last sentence of that finding, that there's more than ample space for all the proposed structures. I think that's a little vague and overbroad right now, because we know that there is going to be an application for cabins, and to say all proposed structures, I think it's confusing, because in the plan that's been submitted, it does refer to cabins. We're not discussing them right now. The other proposed structures, a new clubhouse, a new steel building, and those structures that are being considered, I just find it a little overbroad for that particular sentence in the finding, and would ask for it to be stricken.
Mr. Van Dyken?
Thank you, Commissioner Watson. I would note that this conditional use permit, only the proposed structures mentioned there are only those authorized and proposed under this. The challenge with the cabins is twofold. Environmental review requires us to look at all what it calls connected or phased action. So any project that could be anticipated in conjunction with it has to be discussed in environmental review. So that automatically means in the broader discussion of environmental review, we include cabins. And so right away, it's in the conversation. And then we get to the land use side, and now our county ordinance breaks things down into particular uses. So then it kind of perhaps confuses people a little bit, because we put something out there for conversation, and then we pulled it back. The reason we pull it back is because it's not, we can't do two uses under one hearing. And so any other use that they would propose, those proposed structures would be mentioned, or those needs would be mentioned under that finding for that consideration. So this by default cannot refer to those cabins. So, I mean, the structures that are there, that are proposed, I don't think there will be any argument at all that there's ample space for them. A farm of this nature could build, and many farms probably would have square footage of machinery sheds that would far outpace the square footage of what is here. So I don't think there's probably any doubt that there is ample space for the structures that they have proposed. That would be how I would characterize it. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Watson?
With that explanation, I'll withdraw my objection to that sentence.
Thank you. Were you wanting to take any action based on your previous comments regarding the Minnesota EPA?
No.
Okay.
That was for information only.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any further discussion outside of a motion regarding this proposal? Anything else the commission members would like to discuss? Questions? Okay. Would anyone like to take any action on this conditional use permit application?
Mr. Chair, I would move that we accept the findings as they have been reported, items 1 through 8. If you want to do that as a separate motion, or if you want to consider the conditions, I don't know what your preference is.
So I think my preference is to have a motion that would not necessarily separate out the two. I also think that there would need to be something in the motion that incorporates what we have done with the two, incorporate the township conditions in there as well, and which ones and how you would want to do that.
Can I make a
Mr. Van Dyken.
Mr. Chair, thank you. If I would perhaps make a suggestion, I think I hear Commissioner Watson correctly in supporting or proposing to adopt the findings. Would that explicitly be a motion to recommend approval with the adopted findings? And then we could then say, and conditions numbers 1 through whatever as proposed by staff and the township?
Yes, I'll accept that as a motion.
Thank you. And then I think the question would remain whether or not you were proposing to take the staff recommendations on the township conditions verbatim, or whether there would be further discussion on how staff recommended on those.
No, I have no additional comments to make. I don't know if other commissioners do.
Okay, so I have a motion to accept the conditional use permit with the conditions and findings from the county as listed. And in addition, the revised conditions as proposed from the township. Is that a fair statement?
Mr. Chair, if it would be,
I don't want to put words in anybody's
yes, I agree that would be good. I would like to add some additional clarity to the township consideration by reading directly right now which conditions would be adopted and which would be amended. Is that
Yes,
fair
please.
on that to
That would
provide
be
additional
good.
clarity? On the township list, number 3, yes, with the amendment that the word cabins and the words and internal driveways be deleted. The addition of the September 11th, 2023 date be added, and OCM be the preparer. Proposed condition number 6 accepted with the correction of notice to noise and the changing of county board to department. Number 8, yes. Number 9, yes. Number 10, yes. Number 11, yes. Number 12, yes. Number 13, yes, with the amendation that 8 o'clock be changed to 6 o'clock a.m. Number 14, yes. Number 15, yes. Number 17, yes. Number 24, yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Imdak.
That is correct.
on number 17.
You have deleted that one.
On number,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, that was redundant, I apologize. Number 17 is no. Number 24, yes. Number 28, yes. And number 32 be amended, accepted as amended to no private helicopters shall land at the golf course. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is that acceptable to you, Commissioner Watson?
Just one moment.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I correct myself?
Yes,
I know what you're looking for, and
Yes.
I thought of it at the same time. I apologize. Because I had the X on number 7, I went right over number 7, which should be accepted in the following form. No berms or landscaping planting along 3rd Street Northeast shall curtail the prevailing winds, creating excess deposit of snow upon the roadway. Review of the plan shall be provided by the township with comment.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may ask Mr. Van Dyken to restate the motion on our behalf, understanding that it's Commissioner Watson's motion, and so I'm looking to you, Commissioner Watson, to listen carefully and see if that's what.
yes.
Please do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion on the floor, as I understand it, is a motion to recommend approval of the conditional use permit with the staff proposed conditions and findings supporting approval, and the township proposed conditions as amended or recommended by staff.
Commissioner Watson?
Yes, that states it correctly. Thank you.
I have a motion. I'm not going to rehash that again. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Van Dyken, would you please read the findings at this time then, please?
Mr. Chair, thank you.
Maybe go over them. I'll get word for word.
Okay. Proposed finding, we have 8 different findings that the ordinance requires that be considered. The first finding generally relates to neighborhood impacts. It specifically talks about things that are injurious to the enjoyment and use of properties in the surrounding vicinity, and it talks about the diminishing or impairment of property values. I'll note here that the beginning sentence of this finding proposed by staff states, the Planning Commission finds that the conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property values within the immediate vicinity. And then we do reference in here, the county assessor has given us input on this, and we reference the county assessor's input, noting no impact, negative impact on property values. Proposed finding number 2, Planning Commission finds that the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for uses predominant in the area. The Commission notes that the surrounding area is predominantly a mixture of wooded habitat, scattered residential, and agricultural uses. The Commission finds that the surrounding area will not be subject to limitations on further development of these uses from the proposed golf course. Number 3, the Planning Commission finds that adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, off-street parking, and other necessary facilities have been or will be provided. Commission notes that the site is large and can fully support the parking, drainage, and other facility needs associated with the proposed use. Commission further notes that the county engineer reviewed and approved the traffic and access discussion, the environmental assessment worksheet prepared for the project. Number 4, the Planning Commission finds that adequate measures have been or will be taken to prevent or control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, and vibrations so that none of these will constitute a nuisance, and to control lighted signs and other lights in such a manner that no disturbance to neighboring properties will result. Commission notes that the noise, dust, odor, fumes, and vibrations associated with the proposed business will be minimal to non-existent. The Commission notes that lighting, though not necessary at excessive levels, will be further controlled through a permit condition. Number 5, the Planning Commission finds that the proposed use is allowed as with a conditional use permit in the A2 zoning district under zoning ordinance chapter 7, section 7.3, and the RM zoning district under zoning ordinance chapter 11, section 11.3, entitled conditional uses. Number 6, the Planning Commission finds that the proposed use is in harmony with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. The Commission notes that the comprehensive plan identifies in Chapter 7, Goal 3, that the county should encourage the expansion, continuation, and development of business. Commission finds that the proposed development strikes the balance between economic development and protection of natural resources spoken of in Chapter 6 on pages 5 and 6. Objective C, Guideline 1 on page 4 of Chapter 7 says that a diversified range of recreational activities for every season should be encouraged. The Commission finds that the comprehensive plan is broadly supportive of a diversified business community, including open space recreational opportunities while providing for balance with and protection of natural resources. Sorry, I ended up reading verbatim anyway. The Planning Commission finds that the proposed use has the ability to meet the standards of the zoning ordinance. The Commission notes that the zoning staff review of the proposal found no violations of the zoning ordinance. The Commission notes that the proposed use can adequately serve the needs of the proposed use, and the Commission observes that there is ample space for all proposed structures and that no land use standard contained in the ordinance are at risk of being violated. And finally, condition number 8, the Planning Commission finding number 8, the Planning Commission finds that the proposed use will not have significant negative impacts on groundwater, surface water, or air quality if operated according to all applicable federal, state, and county regulations, including the conditions placed on the permit. In making this conclusion, the Commission recognizes and relies heavily on the prior completion of an environmental assessment worksheet and the conclusion of the Candioi County Board that there is no potential for significant environmental effects from the proposed project. The EAW is part of the record in this matter. The Commission notes that beyond the EAW, there has been additional groundwater analysis that has also been submitted into the record, further documenting that irrigation at the site is unlikely to significantly impact groundwater levels, area wells, area surface water resources, or the contamination plume from the county landfill. The Commission finds no testimony or direct credible evidence that has been entered into the record to invalidate these conclusions.
Thank you, Mr. Van Dyken. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, so this application has been accepted by this commission. It will go before the Candioi County Board of Commissioners a week from tomorrow for their final approval. That is a meeting where public comment is not, I shouldn't say accepted, but there's no opportunity for public comment at that meeting. You are welcome to attend that. You don't have to, but there is no opportunity for our public comment at that meeting. Is there anything further that anyone has for this board that you know of? Any other business? Okay, meeting adjourned.
I'm going, you know, congratulations. I'm still a little bit in shock, obviously, and
Long Beam is interesting.
I know they're not in perfect order, I don't plan to do word for word, so I have.
but it was a huge surprise.
Yeah, they
We're gonna hold you to that if there's a mistake.
they are
Told
significantly,
me to me anyway, so.
this is part of the record. This is
Hello there, young man.
what was submitted.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then just so I know for sure,
I was
so
very
the ones that, like,
surprised,
information
obviously.
accepted will go,
Went to bed and
be added to the ones that were staff